Like I said, we'll be getting started very shortly. Carlos, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am. You can't see my ugly face. Oh, my mask.
Well, again, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. Hopefully everybody can hear me. This is our second meeting here with the advanced class. And again, I'd like to welcome everybody. And in just about a minute or so, we'll be getting tonight's presentation underway. But first, I think without further ado, I think I'd like to have our Vice President, Mr. Carlos Childress, address us. Carlos?
Well, how's everybody doing tonight? Not going to be long. Carl will be introducing the guest speaker and running through the presentations tonight. I did receive some information from the state today about pre-games and some of the things we will be doing. Haven't had time to decipher everything, but I will interject the things that I know. So let's have fun tonight, and thank everyone for joining us. Carl, if you're on, I'd like to introduce Mr. Carl Blair, your advanced class clinician. Thank you.
I'm not sure Carl is on with us.
Oh, I saw his name on the thing. Okay.
I believe he's at the basketball gym right now, so he might be teaching.
Okay, so a couple questions then. Is Josh Phillips on the line? Is it Josh Phillips? Are you there? Can you please speak up?
I am indeed here.
Okay, so all right, Mr. Josh Phillips is going to be helping out with the presentation tonight. Josh, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and give the class a little background information on you, please?
Sure. I'm Josh Phillips. I've been, I never know how to say how long I've been officiating. I got started at a very young age in Virginia, basically while I was still in high school, and then refereed quite a bit of high school basketball in Texas, and then took a very extended break when I moved to Orlando. And when I decided to get back involved this time around, decided to take a shot at the collegiate level. And so now I'm doing a little bit of collegiate basketball and high school as well, and had the honor of representing CFOA year before last at States. And it was an incredible experience that I would hope that everybody would have an opportunity to do at some point in their officiating career. So.
Okay, well, thank you, Josh. And one thing Josh left out, is his debut on the Ninja. So in other words, Josh is a well-fit gentleman that puts in the work. So we talked about the other day how a regular official becomes an elite official, and how a regular basketball role player becomes an elite basketball role player, a basketball player, and is you have to put in the work. And it starts with exactly what we're doing today. You guys are online, you're getting ready to listen to these great presentations that we're about to go through. We're going to talk about things that will enhance your game as long as you can apply them to your game. Okay? So first of all, I want to start off before we get going. Do we have any questions or anything that you guys last week when you walked away? We don't want to leave any unanswered questions. So is there something that you guys didn't get, or once you left the class and you're like, oh man, I forgot to ask that question. So we're gonna open it up for a couple minutes, try to give Carl a little time to get on as far as what questions you may have had. So just not everybody speak at a time. So let's go ahead. Anybody have any questions? Now, don't forget, we cannot improve ourselves unless we all participate. Because that same question you may have, 3 or 4 of your other officials may not have thought of it. And then once you bring that question up, they say, oh, God, yeah, that's a good question. So don't feel like we're here to pinpoint fingers or anybody. We're second year and advancing up. So we should not be afraid to voice our basketball opinion. All right. So do we have any questions?
I have a question. In regards
Okay.
to the October dates for scrimmages, I know you mentioned as we approach those to send you availability. Do you want us to do that as it gets closer, or do you want us to start sending our availability as soon as possible?
See, that's probably one of the best questions of the night, because unfortunately, which I haven't had time to decipher, I got a phone call, and Seminole County has kind of shut down the rental part of allowing groups to come in. So I am currently working on another plan to do scrimmages. So those dates are now going to change. So as of right now, hold on to your availability until are going to be coming within the next week. I'm trying to hammer things down, working hard to get you guys games to be, 1, reevaluated, 2, to get the rust off before the season starts doing high school mechanics and high school basketball games. All right, great question, Justin. Anybody else?
Yeah, Carlos, Eric Kramer, I got a question for you. Can you
Go
hear
ahead,
me?
Eric. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Carlos, you
Yes,
mentioned
sir.
the other day. Carlos, you mentioned the other day about electronic whistles and stuff like that. You got any more information on that for us?
Actually, I do, but unfortunately, I don't have it here. This is one of the emails that I received. Electronic whistles. The state says that it's one thing that we can do. We can actually still do the regular whistles. It's all going to be based upon us getting with the each individual county and find out what they're looking for, because the state only gave us a baseline to follow. But if the schools are a little bit more restricted than what the state has, then we have to go by what the school is. So now we're setting up a meeting to kind of talk with each individual county to see what they're requiring. Okay, good question. Anybody else? Let's keep them coming. Anybody else?
I have another question. Justin Martinez here. I actually was a little proactive and already bought the official 2020-2021 rule book. However, I know that you guys are going to be providing that. Is that, again, as the scrimmages do come over to where I could kind of return this to get my money back from Amazon?
So bottom line is, guys, I just picked up the rule books today. Just picked them up about an hour ago. So I do have the rule books in my hand. So what's going to happen is I'm going to probably set a couple different locations opposite of the dates that we have our Zoom class, and say, hey, we're going to meet at point A. I'll be there for 2 hours. Then you guys come up, get your rule book, and then keep on moseying along. Or you can send me a self-addressed stamped folder or envelope or whatever it's going to take to do a rule book, and then I can mail that back to you. So those are going to be the 2 ways we get it to you until we can actually set a date as far as when we are going to be able to get together in full, face to face, based on the new information I just received from the state. Okay. Anybody else? Any question? I mean, you got a rule interpretation question. Everybody understood all the questions on the rules from yesterday? I mean, from what, Monday? Okay. So, Carmine, has Carl made it on yet? Carl, you there yet?
No, he hasn't made it on.
Okay. So, Josh, are you ready to go from off the top? You know most of the presentation, so we can get started?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm kind of just going through it now and looking at some stuff, but let's
Okay, so we can double team this thing. So Carmine, can you go ahead and put up the agenda for the day right from the very first slide?
Yeah, we're gonna just segue right into tonight's theme and tonight's lesson for session 2 is the value of the pregame conference. And Josh is going to take you through what it takes step by step to have a fantastic pregame.
All right, before you get started, I'm sorry, Carmine, I didn't mean to cut you out. I thought you were done.
Go ahead. No, that's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Don't answer this question now, but everyone, when does the pregame first begin? Do not answer. Keep that in mind, because after a certain section, I want everybody to type in what they think their answer is into the chat room. All right? If you think you know now, go ahead and type it in. All right? Other than that, Josh, let's roll.
All right. Carmine, let's see. All right, cool. You got the same slides that I'm looking at.
Yeah, so we got the first slide here, Josh, and you could take it away, starting with the pregame conference and the requirements at virtually all levels, which you have experience with several of those.
Yeah, so I think that's it's very important that we recognize that it doesn't matter what level of basketball we're officiating, that when we get an assignment, that whether it's an NBA referee or whether it's a high school game, we have to take what we do very seriously. And the pregame is how that starts. It's how we show our professionalism as officials and how we mentally prepare ourselves. And it has to happen at every single level. It's not something that's just for the college guys to do or the NBA guys to do, or it is for everyone to do. And we can't excuse ourselves from that responsibility as high school officials.
So to kind of add on, the state is asking us this year. So the reason why I asked that first question, when does the pregame conference start? It's supposed to start, some people said the week before, which is absolutely correct. It starts when you first contact your fellow official. Okay, hey, I'm going to be at the game at this time. Okay, hey, I don't have a jacket, so we're not wearing jackets. Or if somebody say, okay, I got an extra jacket. It starts even before you hit the gym. This year is going to be especially vital because now the state is asking us to all try to arrive at the same time. Because of COVID-19, they're supposed to provide us with parking opposite of the public, okay? Then we're supposed to have somebody which is supposed to walk us in or take us to a meeting room or somewhere where we can have our conference together. Now, there's a couple things with this. Hey, there's not a lot of room in this gym, especially Josh can attest to it. You go to a Popka, you're dressing in a ticket booth. There's no way we can social distance in a ticket booth, okay? So you need to have your mask on when you're walking into the gym. All these things need to be talked about. And the biggest thing, if you have any COVID-19 symptoms, you know, you need to stay in touch with your partner even the day before, the day of the game, hey, Josh, man, you know, I got a little temperature, not feeling well, you know, and the minute you say I got a temperature and not feeling well, you need to come off the game, okay? And do we have a replacement for you? If it's last minute, we may have to get the JV official. So in other words, what I'm trying to say, your pregame don't start when you get to the gym. This year is going to be very important that we communicate minimum at least a week in advance. So this way we'll know, okay, hey, I was at this gym. This is where we need to park. This is who we need to see. Let's get there at this time. And it's going to be very important that we try to accommodate the schools and this COVID-19 because it's serious, and we don't want CFOAs not following what we asked them to, you know, the guidelines that we put forth. Okay. All right, Josh. I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no problem. And I would actually say, for me, my pregame starts as soon as I get the assignment, and because there's a process that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to cover some of these things, but I begin the process of thinking about that game as soon as I get that assignment, whether I get the assignment because I'm filling in for somebody and getting a last second call, or if I get the assignment a month or 2 months in advance. I am already going through that process of thinking about that game, thinking about who I'm working with and all that. So number one, we receive the assignment. We got to make sure that a part of our process is to make sure we're documenting, you know, using a calendar or whatever your system is. Make sure that you get the details of that game into your calendar and begin the mental process of preparing for that assignment. And then there's the with the pregame, we also don't just have a pregame and then we're done. And then we go officiate the game and then it's over and we never think about it again. So that mental preparation starts when you receive the assignment. It's also an assessment, a mental assessment of the game, the teams, the players, the coaches, and then an assessment of your crew. And that's important. It's important to know who you're working with. If you've never worked with that partner before, maybe you call them and have a brief conversation. Hey, how you doing? I'm Josh. Nice to meet you, Carmine. And we have a little bit of a warm up prior to it so that we're not walking into a game having never worked with or had, you know, any contact with our partners. As far as the pregame conference and the communication protocol, 72-hour communication with the crew. So 3 days in advance. I don't know. Carl, are we doing at the high school level? Are we doing 3 days? What is it that you guys want?
What I really want is at least a week. You know, you look a week ahead and you can kind of, like, say for instance on Sunday night, all the games you have, you know, that week, you know, I mean, I don't like if you got a game Sunday night, I mean Monday, you contacting your partner. So yeah, 3 days would be a good thing, but pick a day where, you know, your schedule's out there, you know, should be 2 weeks out. Yeah. So, I mean, if you go out and pick a date, I mean, matter of fact, you can do it the first 2 weeks. Hey, I'm on the game with you. If anything changes, I'll let you know. Quick email. So you've already made contact. So they got you. Okay. Then if something changes, like you said, 3 days would be a great. So you need more than one conversation with your partner, because things do change. So, So I agree with, once you get your schedule, 3 days is a great guideline as long as nothing's changed. But if something's changed, you need to kind of get in touch with them as soon as possible. So 3 days is a good guideline.
That's okay. Good. Yeah. My typical process is on Wednesday nights. So Wednesday night is my night to look at the next week. So it's before the week that I'm in has ended, and I look and I see what my games are for the coming week, starting on Monday all the way through the weekend. And Wednesday night, I sit there and I either fire off an email or a text message if I am, you know, have worked with the partners before and I know their preferred communication. If I've never worked with them before, I usually send a text. And then if I don't hear from them, then I'll follow up with a phone call or something like that. But I just kind of use Wednesday nights as my night. But I think it's important to have a process for yourself.
Yes,
where, you know, you sit down and you,
I think Justin has a question. Justin?
Yeah, let him finish his point, and then we'll get the question. He can type the questions into the bar, into the chat
Okay.
bar.
so, and then there's, you know, communication with the school. Is that, that's something we're now doing? That's what you're saying, Carlos, with the COVID stuff? There's going to be some communication with the school moving forward?
Yes. Yeah, so basically what we need to do is we definitely need to, the referee will need to call the school. It's like, hey, I'm your referee for this night. You know, where do we come in at? Where do we park? You know, basically what are we requiring, just to remind ourselves, because, you know, we cover a lot of different counties, and there may be a lot of different, you know, rules, you know, with each county. But you need to contact that AD and just confirm what they have that night. It could be in an email form. Okay, we may be, you know, but we definitely need to call the schools, because they got to provide us a place that we can go and change. This year, guys, they're asking us to bring our own water and our own snacks to limit the amount of exposure and contact outside of our group. You know, so there's a lot of different things. So please make sure that if you're a referee or a crew chief, you need to contact the school, not the day of, a couple of days prior to, get the information, because then you need to make sure that your partners have the information that the school has just given you.
Yeah.
So
this,
it's a lot more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the COVID thing, I think, is going to really force us as high school officials to step up our communication game. Because that's, I think, something that we don't often do well. And a couple things about that, and I see your question, Justin, and it's going to kind of fit in with what I'm saying here. One is that just because you're not the referee on the game doesn't mean that you can't initiate communication. As a matter of fact, especially at the college level, where I'm typically not the R on the game, I will do that just to take some responsibility off of the R, who's probably a veteran official, you know, more veteran than me at the college level. And, you know, that's an opportunity for me as the newer official to say, hey, I'll get this ball rolling for you. So it's, you know, kind of takes something off of the referee, but it's going to be important that we start this communication process earlier and that we started at all. Cause there's been times, and this kind of goes into your question, Justin, where the question is, how do you deal with an official that does not respond to your follow-ups once you have made the initial contact and send the first message? So that's where if you've gotten up to that 72-hour point before the game, and now communication needs to be made with the school, really the crew needs to be locked in at that point, and everybody know what time they're going to be arriving at the gym so that can be communicated. So if you get to that mark and you haven't heard from one of the officials, then you get in touch with the assigner, because at that point the assigner's got to be aware, okay, I might have a problem with an official on this game, and the assigner's got to start looking at what they're going to do to fill that slot, or contact the official themselves, or might have information like, oh yeah, I got a call, he's not going to be able to make it, and so is coming instead, and I just haven't had a chance to put it into arbiter yet, you know, or whatever. So it's very important that you reach out to the assigner if you are not hearing from a partner, and that you give the assigner plenty of time to either explain what's happening or find a replacement official for that game. So good question.
All right, we ready to go to?
Yep, next one. So pregame conference, game day arrival. Early arrival to the game is, as Carlos was saying, it's going to be important that we coordinate that, which is, I think, a good exercise. It's going to require additional communication, and I think that's great. Coordinate getting to, what time are we going to get there? Going to sit out in the parking lot and make sure all three partners are there before heading into the school. So, you know, it starts with an early arrival to the game site. You know, with enough time to be able to kind of get rid of the mental stress of the day, whatever's been going on, whatever issues that you're dealing with in life, that you've got time to get there and kind of disconnect from that and get your mind right and get your mind going in the right direction for officiating basketball. And so then we get to the game site. Now we're walking in, we're the whole crew's there and we're being escorted in. And so as you're walking in, you're typically going to pass through the gym. And even if you're not going to pass through the gym, you can ask, hey, can we just walk through the gym on our way to the locker room or wherever we're going to be changing? And that gives you an opportunity to just give a quick visual assessment of the floor, of looking at the score table and the clocks and lighting. Lighting is very important. Know where your trouble spots are going to be on the floor, where you might have trouble. I have some trouble with when it gets too dark. I have good vision, but I have trouble distinguishing between colors, and especially when the lighting is not good. And so before every game, I try to find, okay, where are my tough spots going to be with the lighting, because I want to know where those are going to be, because I might have to work to get into a better position simply because of my eyes, because of lighting issues that we have, especially some of the older gyms. And so then if there's, take some mental notes or even write some things down as you're kind of assessing the floor, so that you can make sure that you talk about those things in your pregame. And then you have something, Carlos?
Yeah, no, when you finish, I need to interject some things. Go ahead and finish.
Gotcha. And so then you're going to then go and meet and identify who will be the on-site game administrator. That is extremely important. Your game administrator is going to be the person that you're going to go to make sure that, if there's any issues related to the game, you might have an unruly fan. You might have fights, as we had in one of my games this past year. There were multiple fights in the stands in this game. And so we had to rely, we have to know in those situations who our game administrator is, because we can't be dealing with fans that are unruly. That's not our responsibility as officials. So there's going to be a lot of things that fall outside of our jurisdiction and outside of our responsibility and fall into the hands of the game administrator. And so make sure that you identify who that is as soon as you get to the gym. And then you're going to report to the dressing room, and you're going to get physically and mentally ready for the game. I have a stretching routine that I do. And while we're doing our pregame, I'm doing a lot of stretching, but that's the time to really, really start to lock in. Go ahead, Carlos.
Okay, so COVID-19 information, like I say, everybody should be getting this from the state, I believe. But there's going to be a couple new things this year. And if I'm remembering correctly, only the teams are going to be on the side of the scorer's table. And actually the scorer's table and I think they want the teams to be a little bit back further. They may have to have a few rows for social distancing. And so basically what you got to do is see how the gym is also set up, as he's saying, as you're walking through. You should be given the game ball in the locker room. It should be sanitized and clean and given to you prior to the game starting. Now, I don't know how that's going to work if you got a JV and a varsity game. But, again, these are some of the things that he's talking about as you're walking through, making sure that the benches are on the right side, making sure that, I'm going to try, not to say that it's going to happen, I'm going to try to request in gyms where it's packed that they leave the first two rows available. To where, because, the 6 foot distance may not be able to be maintained. So these are some of the things, like I say, even when you're talking to when you make contact with the school, hey, where's the administrator on duty is going to be? Because you may not be able to go hunt them down. See how they're doing the JV game, prior to when you get there. So there's a lot of things that's going to be different this year. So, as Josh is saying, you got to pay attention when you walk through the gym, all right? And make sure you have, if you're walking through the gym, your face mask on. okay, as a group and whatever we're about to do. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, no problem. We got a question here from Mario. If a fight breaks out in the stands during your game, what do you do? So we had a game this year where multiple fights broke out in the stands. We ended up finishing the game with all of the stands cleared, except for parents of the actual student athletes and the coaches and trainers and score table. That's all that remained in the gym. It was a rivalry game, and I think it was Evans and Olympia. Can't remember. We multiple fights. The first thing that we did when the first fight broke out is we cleared the first row because it was with some kids that were jumping up out of their seats and kind of making their way out onto the court a little bit. So we cleared the first row, and we got the game administrator to do that. And then for each of the subsequent fights after that, we stopped the game as soon as we were aware that a fight was going on, because it was kind of a fight that was going on in the stands that you had to be aware. It wasn't like evident immediately what was happening. But when it would happen, we would stop the game. For the second one, we got game administration involved again. They removed the folks that were in the fight. And then after the third one, the police came in and basically, got in line down at the bottom of the court. And then it became apparent that it wasn't even going to be enough. So we ended up clearing the stand. So I think you got to take fights. Game administration is going to be key. Communicating with them and making sure that everybody's kept safe. And hopefully maybe fights will be not as big a deal with COVID and people having to be distanced up there. It might actually help that.
So, and a couple of things I want to add on to that. As an official, who's watching the benches? Who's watching players that may go into the stands? What happens to the players that go into the stands? What time was on the clock? How many fouls? Who had the ball? You still have work to do, but you also have to, first of all, protect yourself first, because you do become targets when stuff like that happens. Second, you need to also pay attention and get the players and tell the coaches, hey, coaches, can you get your players away from it? Because we still have work to do. Because if we see, if my mom's up in the stands and I'm player number 21 and I run up in the stands, guess what I just did? I just ejected myself. You didn't eject me. I did, because I'm going to participate in a fight. So I have work to do. So, well, maybe in the pregame, hey, something happens, guy closest to the bench, okay, hey, coach, get your players away. Guy opposite the table, hey, check the clock. And then the other person, whatever we talk about in pregame. Right now, it's kind of a pregame. Think about things like that, because you never know when fights happen, period. Because if you knew, then, tell me what the next lottery numbers are, please. All right.
And that's why it's important to know who that game administrator is. So, all right, so back to our pregame conference. We know who our game administrator is. We're going to be ready for any fights that might happen. And so then it's, what are we going to use for our pregame? So there's a lot. You guys have probably seen them. You've got the board that like you see up in the top left-hand corner of this slide. Are we on this slide yet, Carmine? There we go. So, probably most of you are familiar with that. That's the board that's got the magnets. Those are really helpful, because as you're going through your pregame, you've got a guide on the back, and then you've also got your magnets so you can talk about specific game situations. I really like using those. You can also have like a reference sheet with a checklist. I know that Carl, for example, he's got a sheet that he's carried around for who knows how many years, and looks like it's been folded up 100 times and put in his pocket. And it's a great pregame. So everybody's kind of got their own way of doing it. And so it might be a checklist, or something that you've written out, that you've added some things from other pre-games that have been like, oh, I want to add that to my pre-game. Or some will bring an iPad or a tablet or a laptop computer where they've got the notes on there, and or even like a phone. One of the things that I really like doing in pregame is talking about plays and saying, hey, here's a play that I had in a game, or here's a play that I saw on YouTube, and hey, how are we going to handle this play if in our game? That's a real good way. Talking about some plays is a real good way to get conversation going, so it's not stale and you're kind of just going through a list of things, but specific plays, and it gets conversation going, and oftentimes leads into talking about different situations and all that. So that's another, use an iPad or a tablet or something and maybe have some plays that you're going to show and talk about. The pregame, it's not just a pregame and then we don't talk about the game anymore. It's not pregame and then referee the game and go home. We're going to have our pregame before the game starts. We're going to have our conference during halftime. So we're going to be talking about plays that happened in the first half, situations. How did we handle this? How did we handle that? It's important to remember and catalog plays in your mind. Like, okay, I want to make sure we talk about that because that was a weird play. And so I want to talk about it at halftime. Or I didn't really understand, I kind of felt like, that was, I might've jumped into my partner's area on that particular play. Let me remember to check with him on that play. So we've got our halftime conference where we're going to talk about what happened in the first half and what changes we need to make for the second half. And then very important is a post-game conference. How did the game go? What's our evaluation of ourselves? What are some things that I love to ask? Hey, what are some things that I can be working on? I ask that of I try to ask that of my partners after every game. What did you see that you thought was something that I could be working on for my next game? So that post-game conference is very important for our development as referees. During our pregame, there are some things that we do want to try to make sure we cover. Rule changes and points of emphasis, that's important. Talk about the teams, the coaches, the players, and the crew. So if you're familiar with the teams, then you might be able to provide some insight to your partners about the teams and coaches and players. If you're not familiar with the teams, then I would recommend that you do a little bit of research and go and look up on Max Preps or something and see, okay, who have they played and who have they, who has this team played and how have they stacked up against their competition and the other team. And you're kind of looking at that and have some sort of an idea coming into the game of what you're, do you need to be prepared potentially for a blowout? Not that you come in expecting something like that, but is that something that you need to be prepared for? Might it be a lopsided game? Because those games have to be officiated a particular way once they start to get lopsided. So having some knowledge about the teams and coaches and players, but then also having some knowledge about your crew and what are some strengths and weaknesses of the crew members, and what can you do to add to the crew gelling as much as possible and being the best team on the basketball court. We've talked about pregame protocol, arrival on the court, warm-up protocol. That's something that we want to talk about as before we go out there as a part of our pregame. What is our protocol going to be? Where are we going to go to our spots on the floor? What are we each going to be responsible for? And then also our game management, and that's a huge one to make sure that we cover in our pregame conferences. Game management type issues, which might be talking about a particular coach, and maybe one of the crew members has had that coach before and kind of has some insight into some things about that coach or maybe some of the players. We'll go over rule changes. That's important. And there's some examples here of some rule changes. I'm just going to skip over this one. The important thing is go over rule changes. Make sure that everybody is aware of what the new rules are and that everybody's on the same page regarding rule changes, especially early in the year. Points of emphasis. go over those as well. Those are the things that we're supposed to be working on and provide and giving special emphasis to for this year, which is mandated by NFHS. So it's important to know what those points of emphasis are and to make sure that we are definitely communicating about those points of emphasis, because oftentimes there might be some interpretation as to, okay, if this is a point of emphasis, for instance, hand checking, which has been a point of emphasis in years past. And so when it was first introduced as a point of emphasis, there were some people that were like, okay, touch once, touch twice, automatic foul. And then some people were like, no, I'm not going to call just for a little touch an automatic foul. Well, we need to be on the same page as a crew. We've got to, we have to be consistent. And so talking about those points of emphasis is important, because the last thing that we want to do is when I'm at trail and I've got a guard matchup and I'm taking a foul and a hand check, and then when Carmine is at trail on the other end of the court and there's the same hand check and he doesn't take it, well, that's a problem, right? So we got to make sure that we're talking and communicating about those points of emphasis so that we can be consistent as a crew.
Hey, Josh, 1 second. All right, everybody, you should know this because we went over this last week in class. Each and every last one of you, except for hand checking, type in a point of emphasis that we covered last week. All right, okay, Josh, go ahead.
Let's see, we've actually got a pop-up question. No, that's next slide. Sorry, this slide. So this slide is actually the point of emphasis slide. So it looks like you got 3 hints right here on.
That's why I tried to do it before that one. It's all good.
So for some point of emphasis this year, you can see them right there. Carlos has obviously, asked for the group to chime in on some points of emphasis. So again, it's important. Let's make sure we talk about it. It's got to be in our pregame. I'm not going to go over them right now, Carlos, unless you want to go over something specific.
I tell you what, list the one that is not one of these 3. There's one that I do not see on here that is not one of the 3. And list the one that's missing. I put it that way. Let's list the one that's missing. All right, we can move forward. Just write it on, type it into your box.
All right, so pop-up question. When a foul occurs, the official shall verbally inform the offender, and then, I guess, are we choosing between these? Verbally inform the scorer, the number of the offender, use the right hand to indicate to the scorer the number of the offender, use both hands, so right hand, use both hands to indicate the number, or are both A and C verbally inform the scorer of the number and use both hands? So it looks like
here we go.
A, B, C, or D.
We'll give everybody 1 minute, and
oh, look at that! It pops right up. Oh, this is cool, Carmine. Little poll.
My thing is, I'll give you a little tip. Don't bet all your money on the first poll question. It's like Jeopardy.
All right, so we're just gonna let those votes come in and move on.
Yeah, no, we're gonna tally them at the end of 1 minute, and then if you'd like to talk about them, we could talk about them. If not, we can move on. So you're the boss.
Yeah, I mean, let's all get this one right.
So Josh, basically, we give the person that didn't get it right, or why they didn't get it right, and then try to see where they were thinking, and then guide them to why why their answer, whatever answer was right was the right answer. That's basically just conversation.
Looks like we got pretty much everybody said both A and C are correct. We had a couple of use the right hand. So we used to just use one hand and it actually could be the right or the left. I'm left-handed, so it would be with one hand. So you blew 32, and you had to do it that way. We don't have to do that anymore. So now we can use both hands, and so we should indicate the color and then the number, and verbally and visually with both hands. And with our mechanics, we want to make sure we're not doing chicken wings like this. So we want to keep our elbows nice and tight. We want it right here in front of our face, and we want to pop it in there. Wham, 32. So practice that, because you got to do it backwards, right? This is 23 to me, but it's 32 to you guys. So you got to get used to getting that first number up with your right. And so sometimes some people will kind of go lead with the right hand because that's the first number, and then the second number. So, but this is where when I'm working out at the gym, and it's in between sets, I will oftentimes be giving signals to the mirror and looking to make sure I got a nice pop, and giving good verbal cues, and I'm presenting strength, which is important. And because the coaches are often looking at you as you're coming up there. So you want to be confident about it. Blue, 32, hit, 2. So good pop, good confidence, and take care of business and move on. All right. Teams, coaches, players, and crew. So the participating teams, the participating coaches and players, and the officiating crew and so these are just things that we just want to be aware of, and we've kind of talked about this already. Let's see, did I skip one? Yes. All right. Game assessment. Is this a conference game or a non-conference game? That often can be important. Is it a rival game? What are we anticipating about the game? Are we going to be up and down? Are we going to be running up and down the floor? Is this going to be, secondary offense back and forth by both teams? Man-to-man defense versus zone defense. Is it a team that kind of likes to slow things down? Maybe you've got one team that wants to run and one team that wants to slow it down, so that you might have teams trying to impose their will on the other team and make the other team play at their pace. So these are good things to know about the game, and good things to talk about in your pregame, so that you're ready. If it's a fast-paced game, then we want to know that. We want to know that going into the game, be mentally prepared. You're going to be exhausted when the game's over. And there's every game I'm mentally exhausted after the game. Every single game, at no matter what level, I'm mentally exhausted after the game. Not every game I'm physically exhausted, because there are games that go at a little bit slower pace. But we got to know and be ready for that, and so that we don't get caught not hustling because we weren't aware that the game was going to be going at a fast pace. Our pregame protocol: we're going to head to the court at 20 minutes before, so that we are on the court 15 minutes prior to tip. As far as where we're going to report, the referee is going to report to mid-court. So you're going to be standing away from the table, facing the table, referee right at midcourt. And then our U1 is going to be on one of the 28-foot line, and our U2 is going to be at the other 28-foot line. And they're going to be responsible for the teams that are on that end of the floor. And while the referee is going to be responsible for everything, but also have the responsibility to head over to the table, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So the U1 is going to be positioned to observe the home team, and the U2 is going to be positioned to observe the visiting team. At 12 minutes, the referee is going to go to the scorer's table and check the book. So that's, I actually will oftentimes do it before then. It's in case there's an issue, because technically at the 10-minute mark, right, everything's supposed to be right. Everything's supposed to be in the book, and we don't want to be starting the games with technical fouls. We never, if at all possible, we never want to start the game with a technical foul. So get over there and make sure the book's right. That's important. Make sure that you look over the book, that you double check and make sure. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll look at my U1 and my U2, and they'll give me a verbal signal how many players they've counted on their end of the floor. And so then I'm walking across, I get the book, I make sure that the number of players that were for the home team, that at least that many players is in the book. And then same for the visiting team. I just count them, make sure, okay, we've at least got that. Oftentimes there'll be guys that are injured or whatever, there might be more. But we don't want there to be less. That means somebody out on the court warming up and he's not in the book, and that can create a problem for us. So going to take care of the book. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, so this year, guys, ladies, only the official book and the scorekeeper will be allowed at the table. This year, only the scorekeeper and the official book will be allowed at the table. So if the visiting team lineup has been presented to the home team and it's not in the book, I mean, don't penalize them, because they had their lineup ready prior to the 10-minute mark. But that's something big with the COVID-19, and even the scorekeeper and the timer, they want them to be at least 6 feet apart. So, same thing, COVID-19 is changing the game, so just be mindful of that as well. Thank you, Josh.
So that's a question that we have there. So what, and I don't know the answer to this, what are we doing different? What is the protocol for the coaches and captains meetings? Are we maintaining 6 feet, I would assume?
Okay, so coaches and captains meeting, one coach, possibly one captain, it will be held at center court, okay, where the referee can stand on the division line, and then coach and captain can stand on their respective halves to where you have distance between, and then one official, only the referee, the two other officials stay and watch their teams. So pretty much you're going to either have, or you can either, and again, these are things that we're going to talk about, or we can do a coaches, then captains, but I don't like speaking to players without their coaches being there. So I would either just only do coaches. Again, these are things we're going to talk about, but the pregame will be done at half court. Again, this is information, and I'm hoping I'm telling you correct. It will be, we will go through it again once I get through it and disseminate all the information that they've sent out, and our plan is put together. But the coach and captain meeting will not be at the scorer's table because of all the bodies and coaches and possible people running into you, just like it'll be when you're doing the meeting at half court as well. But that is, what the plan is so far. We're not going to have a million players. They're going to have the one captain, one coach, maximum.
Oh, we got a question. Are we doing the Jim Mills switch?
This year, we will not be doing the Jim Mills switch because of, again, less chance of, walking past people. I mean, stay where you're at, stay comfortable. We will not be doing the switch this year.
If you don't know what the Jim Mills switch is, don't worry about it. We're not doing it. So
I got a question for the guys that have some games before the varsity. Let's say the underclassmen, maybe a freshman or a JV. And this has to do with the table and the book, etc. What happens when the bus and the teams are delayed, Carlos? How do you want the referee to handle that?
So bottom line is, we're not going to forfeit a game, and we have to give them ample time to warm up. So you just have to be patient, unfortunately. I mean, things happen because of busing and different ways of them getting over there. So basically, you no technical fouls will be given. You give them time to get there, but 9 times out of 10, you get both coaches together, maybe even the administrator on duty, and normally they decide to shorten the quarters. Okay, if both coaches don't agree, we can't shorten them. But normally they shorten the quarters to 6 minutes versus 8 minutes. But you will run into games where, you know, teams are going to be late, especially if you're talking about a 4:30 game and you got Freedom coming all the way over to Winter Springs. You know, and there's traffic. So, I mean, there's nothing we can do. We just have to be patient, you know, unless there's a phone call and say, hey, the team's not coming, then that's something totally different. But we just have to be patient when it comes to the teams not being there at a certain time.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer
good.
that? Hey, before we go any further, I'm sorry. I was scrolling through and I think I see Mr. Mario Dixon on the line, and I think I've seen a few questions that he's been kind of popping up to you guys. First of all, I'd like to introduce Mario and understand why he may be asking some of these questions. Mario is part of our recommendation team. He's also going to be doing some evaluations for the recommendation team for playoff recommendations and considerations for higher level games. So, guys, Mario, just give a quick, brief background of yourself real fast, and then we'll turn it back over to Josh, because I know some of these guys probably say, who is this guy popping up these questions? So if you would, please, Mario, introduce yourself.
All right, Carlos, you want to throw me out there like that? I got you.
Yes, sir.
No, all good, though, all good. Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Like Carlos said, I'm Mario, part of the recommendation committee. I've been with the CFOA for a little over 10 years now. I do college ball as well on the women's side, along with Ron Tila and a couple other guys that some of y'all might know. And our recommendation committee this year, we're just going to be looking for up-and-coming officials and veterans who meet the criteria to be on playoff crews. So if you see us in the gym, I'm sure y'all will know who we are at some point in time or another. See us in the gym, don't get nervous. Go out there and handle your business, work your game, have fun. I always believe that if you're having fun, you're going to have a great game. If you're not having fun, you might go out there and uck up the court. So don't get nervous when you see veterans come to the gym. They might have notepads or might have laptops or whatnot. Just go out there, handle your business, have fun with your partners, and work your game. If y'all have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us. I'm an open book. I answer any question that you might have. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does. So good luck on this season. Let's all stay safe.
Now, with that being said, no questions. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Josh.
No problem. And I will add to that, if you get an opportunity to work with Mario or he is coming behind you in a game, watch him. He is a good official, and you will learn a lot. Great official, great man. Good to see you, brother.
Appreciate it, Josh. Likewise, brother.
All right, so we're going to do our coaches and captains meeting at mid-court. We don't know if our captains are going to be there with the coaches or not. They'll let us know before the season starts. Return to the warm-up positions, and this is where you can start to pick up some things, okay? One of the things that I like to do is I like to identify three-point shooters. So I'm going to watch shooting form. I'm going to try to find my left-handed shooters because I want to be able to find that point of contact on the shooters and make sure that I go from their feet and I get to the point of contact and then I bring it back down. Well, I want to know who my lefties are because that point of contact where our eyes more naturally go to the right hand of the shooter. So, and which can throw us off if now all of a sudden we have a left-handed shooter and we go to find that point of contact and it's over on the other side of the body. It can just be kind of a little mental thing like, oh, wow, it's on the other side. Or we watch the right hand and the right hand is not the shooting hand. And so I like to identify who the three-point shooters are. I like to identify who the lefties are. And I like to pick up pivot feet, how the players, because every player is kind of different. Some of them, there's a lot of similarities though. And so I like to pick up, okay, do they know how to make sure that they don't travel on that, where they're going to hesitation move, right? I want to see, because you're going to see that kind of stuff in warmups. They're going to be doing and kind of showing a little touch of some of their moves. And so picking up and practicing picking up that pivot foot. Okay, this guy, he really likes to use his left foot every single time. So now I know when number 3 gets the ball, as soon as he receives it, boom, go to his left foot, get the pivot foot. It's going to be the left every time. Sometimes, this guy, he can go either way. He can if he's going to jab and go to the left, it's going to be his right pivot foot. If he's going to go to his right, he's going to use his left pivot foot. And so I got to be ready. I got to go and make sure that I find the correct pivot foot so that I don't call a travel when it shouldn't be. So those are some things that you can look for in warm-ups that give you information heading into the game to make sure that you're making consistent calls. We're going to have our crew table meeting. So this is going to be part of you want to get this information if you're the referee on the game. When you go over to check the table, one of the things, and make sure that the book is all correct. One of the things that you want to find out from the table or from the game administrator before you ever get to the table is you want to find out, are we doing a national anthem, player introductions, like what's happening? Because that's even something that you can talk about as far as, hey, when are we going to take our jackets off? And knowing so that as a crew, we're doing everything at the same time. And so knowing what's the sequence of events going to be, so we're not grabbing the ball and dribbling it and getting ready to walk out to half court. And in the meantime, somebody starts singing the national anthem. So those are things that we want to know about. And then also as a referee, you want to make sure that when you go over prior to, and when you're checking the book, that you have a little meeting with your crew table. Now, it's, normally I'm kind of at the table and I'm kind of bend over and I make it a real friendly meeting. And I have a little thing where I tell the folks at the table, hey, you guys are part of our crew today. So this isn't a crew of 3, we're actually a crew of 5, because the official score and the official book are part of our crew. And we can actually go to them and get information from them in the game. So I like to do that just to make them feel like, okay, yeah, I really need to, because sometimes we got to kind of help out, the guy that's on his cell phone the whole time and sitting there trying to do the clock. And you look over and you're, trying to report a number and he's looking here at his cell phone, right? So I try to say something just to say, hey, you guys are just as important as we are. You're a part of the crew. Be ready, because I might come over and ask you for some help on a call. Something light like that, but this kind of says, hey, take your job seriously tonight. So, some sort of communication with the table crew, and then we're going to go through our pregame stuff, national anthem, all that, and then we're going to go. Good toss. Make sure that we know who the jumpers are. Make sure everybody's legal. Make sure we understand who can go and when they can leave and who can move and who can't. And from then, now we're playing basketball. We got the toss, and so now it's all about game management and getting our calls right. Got to make sure we manage the coaches, the bench decorum. Got to know where our coach's box is. We got to know who the bench personnel are, and we got to be aware of any misconduct that's going on those benches. Looks like we got another pop-up question.
Yes, indeed, we do. It's question time.
Why don't you take this away, Carmine, for me?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, get your mouses and your enter, and let's see how we do on this one. During a jump ball, it is a violation if a jumper catches the tap ball before it has touched the floor. If a jumper touches the ball before it reaches its highest point. If a jumper touches the ball more than twice, or all of the above. Ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can do this poll here. What do you say? This is the wrong poll. Hold on.
That's the one from prior.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to give you a little extra time.
There it is. All right, so what do we got here?
Ooh.
During a jump ball, it is a violation if a jumper catches the tapped ball before it has touched the floor. That is a violation. If a jumper touches the ball before it reaches its highest point, yes, yes, that's a violation. We're going to retoss that. So that's another pregame thing, right? We want to make sure we talk about that. Who's going to call back the toss? Because the R, have your whistle in your mouth when you're making that toss. Because if you do, it's going to get yanked at some point in your career. It's going to get yanked out of your mouth by a jumper who goes up and catches your lanyard on his way up. So we're going to hit the whistle and we're going to walk up as the R. We're not going to have our whistle in our mouth, and we're going to make that toss. So somebody has to call the toss back if it gets stolen, or if it's just simply a bad toss. If it doesn't go high enough, or it goes off to one side or whatever, we got to make sure we get that right. So that's an important thing to talk about.
I need to kind of interject. Unfortunately, guys, you will not get that wrong this year, or right, because there's no jump balls this year.
What? Get out of here.
Really?
No, the state is home team. I mean, the visiting team will be awarded the first throw-in and will establish the alternated possession at that time. If we go into overtime, so now you need to have a coin in your pocket to flip a coin for overtime to see who gets the basketball for overtime.
I've been practicing my toss all summer. How dare they?
How dare they? But that is one of the things the state has one part of information that's in that information. Again, guys, I'm telling you things that stood out, that shocked me. It's like, okay, no jump ball, really?
So
So
that
there you go. The correct answer is G. Congratulations, Mario Dixon.
So but now
None of the above. None of the above.
no, you go with the book answer, because if it's on a test, you need to go with the book answer, not the COVID-19 answer. But since we're going through this, again, we'll talk about this more, but as we go through. But I have you guys here now, and the information's there. It's out here. But
hey,
yeah,
Carl,
the
information that you're giving us, it's coming from the state of Florida, right? FHSAA.
Absolutely.
Okay,
go ahead.
So no jump ball.
No jump ball this year.
Very interesting.
Yes, it will be visiting team will have the first throw in to start the alternating possession procedure, unless if you have an administrative or a technical foul that supersedes that ruling. Okay, so it's just they don't want guys gathered around a circle jumping, don't know why, because when they get up underneath the board for rebounds, you're gonna still have probably a closer knit situation than you would at the jump ball. But that is one of the things that they do have in their information. They're not gonna have jump balls this year.
Quick question to go off that. So that means we put the throw in at the division leg, and if we're starting the beginning of a quarter, basically.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So I guess I don't have to discuss with Josh the importance of the jump ball setting the whole tone for the game then,
That's
right?
Yep. Yeah, no more. If it's a bad tip, then you've screwed us all.
But no, I mean, go over the bad tip, because you're absolutely right. I mean, and you have to set the tone with a good toss, and you do need to practice it, because you know what? And this is one thing they did tell us, that things may change mid-season, but we're not to assume that they've changed. They will make sure that the leadership of our organization receives something in writing telling us of the changes. But everything may be we're good. We're good this week. Hey, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. And then week 4, hey, let's go back to jump balls. So you need to know the rules and don't get laxed, because this is where all this communication that we've been talking about is going to come in. So, but yes, and no jump balls as of right now to start the season. Thank you, Josh.
I'm sorry. I got a question. I probably came on late. This Ron T. Lot. When does the season start?
Okay, I'm gonna have some important dates that are gonna be sent out, but generally the girls' week start November the 9th to where they can start their preseason games, and the boys' practice also start roughly in that week, and then a week later the boys' games start the following week later.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. Since Mr. Ron T-Lot just had to open up his mouth, I have to introduce Mr. Ron T-Lot. He is going to be one of your clinicians during one of these sessions. I'm not for sure which one. Mr. T-Lot, can you go ahead, since you've already broke the ice, and give a little background on yourself so the class can get to know who you are?
A little background about myself. My name is Ronald T. Lott. I've been officiating high school basketball for about 8 years. I love to do it. One thing you'll notice about me is that I like to show my pearly white teeth, and I love to have a good time. And also I do officiate a little bit of women's basketball, not as much, with Mario Dixon. And looking forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Ron's another one of those guys that you wanna watch him if you get the opportunity. Excellent official, and mostly just a really fun guy to work a game with. He's never gonna let you get too serious. Good to have you, brother.
Well, we got another poll question here, ladies and gentlemen. So I'd be happy to segue, if you're ready, into the next poll question, Josh.
Yep, go for it.
This is a bench technical foul is charged to the offender and indirect to the head coach, the offender, the head coach, or the bench. All right, we got 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
We need some Jeopardy music.
Yeah. You know what? For the next one, I'll get the Jeopardy music rolling there.
All right, cool.
All right, so I think we got. Let me see. Do we got everybody? No, we're still waiting on 5, 6, 7. I'll give you five seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Josh, take it away.
All right, let's see what our you're gonna pop up the screen. There they are. Oh, kind of all over the place here. So the offender and an indirect to the head coach is the leading candidate. We got second place was a tie, the head coach and the bench, and then third place just the offender. Sorry, I had my cat trying to get into the room. So the offender and an indirect to the head coach is going to be our correct answer. There are some weird things here though, because What if it's a member of what if it's a trainer who does something? What if it's not an actual player that there is no offender in the book? How is it going to be handled at that point? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, please feel free to chime in when questions are asked. Anybody? Oh, come on now.
Anybody that's on the bench is considered bench personnel.
Now,
Yeah, but you can eject the bench personnel for a technical.
Right. You can toss a player, right?
mhm.
But what if it's not a player?
You can toss them also.
You can. How is the technical foul going to be assessed?
Head coach.
Indirect or direct?
That should be an indirect
Indirect.
technical to the coach. And then 2 free throws plus the ball at the division line for the opposing team.
So if it's bench personnel and it is not a player who can receive the direct, the coach is going to get an indirect still or a direct?
Wouldn't it be a direct because he or she takes control of the bench?
Correct. Yes, that's the correct answer. It's going to be a direct to the head coach if it's a bench personnel that is not a player. So
The
if
coach
there's
is
no
responsible for his or her own conduct and behavior, as well as substitutes, disqualified team members, and all other bench personnel.
exactly. So direct to the head coach, you can still toss whoever it was. You can say, okay, that bench personnel got to get out of here. But it's a direct to the head coach. Whereas if it's a player and you can identify who the player is, that player gets a direct and the coach gets an indirect. But if there is no player to give the direct to, then the coach is going to get the direct technical foul.
And at that point, he loses his coaching box and has to remain seated for the whole entire game.
Correct. Yep, on the direct, he's going to lose the coaching box. Good point. All right, moving right along into game management. So when we're talking about game management in our pregame, we are going to be talking about players, right? This is one of the most important things to make sure that we talk about in a game. We want to talk about the players. We want to talk about are there some players that are going to be difficult for us? Are there some players that are the go-to guys for their team? And so we got to be aware, okay, this is the guy that the coach is going to want every call for. If he's going to get all worked up if this player gets touched and we don't call it, it's his guy. And he relies on this guy. So we want to know things like that because we want to know, okay, why is the coach freaking out? I don't understand why he's losing his mind right now. That was clearly not a foul. Well, if we know going into the game that the coach might get a little unreasonable when his star guy is driving to the basket and he wants every single call. So those are good things to know about so that we can manage the coach through the game. Our foul management, we want to know things like the offenses that are being run. We talked about that a little bit before, and know that the defenses that are being played. Does one team like to run a motion offense? What types of defenses, zone versus man-to-man, pressing defenses, fast-paced run-and-gun offenses versus slow it down and move the ball around. Low post, do we have low post players? Are their low post players good? Are they good with their feet? Do they have a propensity to travel when they get the ball in the low post? Do they just like to kick it back out and they really don't have a low post game? These are all things to talk about in the pregame and to try to have as much information as a crew so that we can prepare ourselves mentally so we're not just walking out on the basketball court and like, oh, wow, it's run and gun. And for the first 5 minutes of the game, we're just trying to get up and down the court. And then game clock management and clock awareness. So important, guys. Clock awareness is so important. there's going to be, especially like we talked about before, where you've got the kid that's there and they're on their cell phone the whole time and they're not paying attention to what's going on. So make sure that you're getting clock references throughout the game. When you call foul, quick glance up at the clock. What's the time up there? Because if it keeps going, you've got a little mental note of what was on the clock. We go to a timeout, quick glance up at the clock. Sometimes somebody kicks the power on the scoreboard, and when it comes back up, it's all gone, right? It doesn't recall itself properly. So we don't want to just be like, oh, I have no idea. We want to at least have something like, okay, well, I got a clock reference maybe 45 seconds ago, and it was 4:50, right? We want to have something to where we're getting our clock awareness is, we're getting references, because the other thing too is we gotta know, when are we getting close to the end of the first, when is it the quarter almost out? What is end of game? When are we getting into the last minute of the game? Like we don't want to be surprised by the horn going off to end the half, and we weren't ready, and there's contact and a guy taking a shot from mid court, and there's boom, a crash right there. Well, why is this happening? Well, we had no idea that that time was expiring on the clock. So these are things that we want to talk about in our pregame. Make sure that we've got good clock awareness. We'll talk about our primary coverage. What are our primary areas of coverage? That's where a little board or something can come in handy. At lead, center, and trail, what are our primary areas of coverage? What are our secondary areas of coverage? And how are we going to officiate our primary areas of coverage versus our secondary areas of coverage, right? And that might also depend on how long we've been officiating, right? You might be working with a veteran official, and you're just getting started, and you've been officiating a year or two, and the veteran official might say, hey, own your third and don't worry about, we got the rest, right? And oftentimes they're doing that to kind of take some of the stress off of a veteran, of a newer official. When I first got started doing college basketball, I just owned my third. That's all I cared about. I wasn't going to go out of my primary area of coverage for nothing. There's two good college officials that have been doing this for a while. They're going to be able to do that, right? And so that's what I'll often try to do with some of the younger guys that I work with at the high school level is, hey, just own your third. If you can get to where you can own your third, then you're going to be fine. Take some of that pressure off. But we also want to talk about our secondary areas of coverage. That's important, and understand what are our secondary areas of coverage and what might be some of our trouble spots where we might have, like the elbow might be a trouble spot where we've got to have a good angle. We might even need the elbow on the trail side. We might even want to have the C taking a look through there, because that's a tough spot. Either the trail's got to get on top of that play to see the point of contact, or he's got to get underneath it. That's a tough, that elbow is a tough area. And so we gotta communicate about that, and short corner on the C side, on the slot side, those are going to be things that we want to talk about. What are going to be our trouble spots in our primary and secondary areas of coverage? And then we want to talk about matchups, and what are our responsibilities within those areas of coverage as far as matchups are concerned? Who's off ball? Who's on ball? All that kind of stuff. We want to go over in our pregame, make sure that we're all on the same page with our coverage areas. Moving along with game management, dribble drives to the basket. We want to talk about that. Talk about the hesitation move. Are there some players that like to do the hesitation move and that pivot foot comes up before the ball is released, right? Those dribble drives to the basket. We'll talk about those. We want to talk about double whistles. How are we going to handle double whistles? Is it going to be whoever's primary it is going to take that to the table, or is it going to be whoever the play is coming to is going to take it to the table, right? We want to know how to handle double whistles, because the last thing that we want is for there to be a double whistle with two officials staring at each other and neither one of them actually remembers what happened on the play. Because all you know is boom and, oh, double whistle. You're looking at each other and then, oh, I should take this one to the table. And I've forgotten what happened, because all I knew was there was a double whistle. So we want to talk about those so it can just be second nature. I'm the lead, the play's coming to me, boom, double whistle. I got this. I got it. We want to talk about those things. Communication and eye contact. So important as officials. It's important to not just understand what you're looking at, but you have a responsibility to be looking where your partners are not, right? We do not want to be watching the ball all over the court. So we want to talk about the importance of eye contact. I spend quite a bit of time just glancing, especially when the ball is not in my primary or I don't have an engaged matchup. I want to know where my partners are because I want to be looking and making sure that I'm covering an area where they are not looking, because we've got to make sure that we have eyes covering the entire floor. And so eye contact is also important prior to handing the ball in for a throw in, right? The last thing that we want to do is be handing the ball in for a throw in. And meanwhile, our partner who just called the foul is still standing there in front of the table because the table has a question, right? So we want to make sure that we get eye contact with our partners prior to administering a throw in.
Hey, Josh, are you about to go to another slide?
Yes, sir.
All right, just a quick point real quick. And then are you at a point where we can give them a 5-minute break after I say what I have to say? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so double whistles. We don't want to blarge. So also eye contact. This is where both of these come into play. Like he said, you look at each other, then you don't know who's supposed to take it. But one of the biggest sins is if one goes block and the other one goes charge. And then now there's miscommunication between us, and we have to must report both of them. Okay? Why? Because now if I let Josh talk me out of my block, then the rest of the night, every call I make, they're going to say, are you sure? You might want to ask your partner Josh before you make that call. Okay, so double whistles is a big thing. So good eye contact and communication. No preliminary signals before you guys make contact and say who's going to take it. So I just kind of wanted to throw that in there at you. Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely. We want to, yep, there's the 5 minutes right there.
You ready?
Let's take 5 and what do you got, Carmine?
Yeah, you ready to rock and roll? Everybody take a 5-minute break, and then we'll see you back here in 5 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Carmine, I don't know if it's me, but the clock looked like it went up versus going down.
It's just you.
Oh.
It's it stopped on my side.
Okay. Yeah. Whenever we come back, make sure everybody type in I'm back. I'm gonna go off line for a few minutes. I mean, off mute for a few minutes. I'll be on mute for a minute.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Yeah, as you guys may or may not heard, you hear the buzzer now, and that's it. We're done. So hopefully you used the bathroom, you got yourself a drink, and we're going to get started here as soon as the master of ceremony. Well, I am the master of ceremonies, but as soon as the host, Mr. Josh Phillips, wants to get started here, we're going to start off with pregame conference and game management.
All right, let's keep rolling. All right, so one of the other things we want to talk about in our pregame conference, we want to talk about protecting the shooter. That's we've been a point of emphasis here for a couple of years at different levels, but we got to make sure that we bring that shooter up and we bring him back down. So that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in pregame. Okay, whose primary responsibility is based upon where the shooter is on the floor. We want to make sure we get up to that point of contact and then bring him all the way back down to the floor. Make sure that we don't have a crash into the shooter. We want to talk about the shooter kicking out his leg and tripping the defender. That's a play that we've got to be ready for. So we've got to be ready for everything that might relate to that shot, especially if we've got a particularly good three-point shooter where defenders are going to be running hard at him. Or we might have a good three-point shooting team where it's just the defense at times might be chaotically running around the floor. We got to be ready for those situations. So we talk about protecting the shooter. We talk about our help situations, situations where it might be a play where we might need some particular help on. Maybe it's a high screen and roll play, right? And we want to talk about what's our coverage in a high screen and roll with a team that's running a high screen and roll type offense. Who's got the screener? Who's got the defender? Who's got the on-ball defender? Who's got the dribbler, right? Talk through those situations because, our slot might need to come up and look a little higher than he normally would because slot doesn't have a lot of action going on there because we've got 4 players up there involved in this screen. So we want to talk about those situations and talk about our partner communication, making sure that we are all communicating throughout the game, especially about double whistles or certain situations where I might my partner has called a foul and as he's going to report the foul, I'm like, I got your shooter, right? So just take that, let my partner know, hey, I got the shooter, right? And it also gives us an opportunity to be verbal and show strength on the court because we're taking those opportunities to just to be verbal out there and say, hey, I wasn't involved in this play, but that doesn't mean that I'm not involved in the administration of what happens because we had a foul. Talk about basket interference. Talk about whether we are going to need to be worried about basket interference, right? Some teams just don't have the guys that are going to be up above the rim where we got to worry about a lot of basket interference and goaltending calls. Most players can get to the net, right? They can at least get there. So we've got to be thinking about basket interference at some level. But do we need to be worrying about above the rim play? That's something that we want to talk about. Basket interference and goaltending situations are some of the toughest plays to get right. And so we've got to know going into the game, is this something that we have to be ready for? Because if you are surprised by a basket interference or goaltending play, you are not going to get it right. So we don't want to be surprised by those plays. We want to talk in our pregame about our substitutions, our are substitutions, timeouts, and throw-ins, right? Those are all the situations where there are things going on the floor. It's a dead ball, right? We've got substitutions coming in, we've got a timeout, or we're getting ready to administer a throw-in, right? That is when the antennas have got to go up. We want to talk about that with our partners. Hey, guys, we have got to be antennas up as soon as that ball goes dead. That's when the crazy stuff happens. So we cannot let something crazy happen during a dead ball. So we do not want to all be looking or chasing the ball around and trying to find it and all be looking for the ball or all be looking at each other while we've got teams going to the benches, right? We've got players, we've got a timeout situation, and players are crossing and going through each other to get to their benches, right? We have got to know that is happening and be ready for that type of a situation, especially if you've got some teams that it might have been a little bit chippy, or there might have been something that happened the last time that they played each other, right? So we have to make sure that during these dead balls that our antennas are up and that we are not letting our guard down. It's the most important time. Carmine, pop-up question. Carmine, where'd he go? Did you leave us?
I would never leave you. Never. So the question is, a designated throw-in spot behind the backboard shall be made from the near sideline, the spot designated behind the backboard, the near free throw lane line extended, or D, none of the above.
Designated throw-in spot behind the backboard. All right, so the ball kicks out of bounds right underneath the rim, basically, correct? That's what's happened here?
Let them answer first.
Oh, I'm not going to give the answer. I'm just making sure I understand the question.
Okay.
He's talking through it.
I'm talking through it. Yeah, exactly. So designated throw-in spot behind the backboard shall be made from the nearer sideline, the spot designated behind the backboard, the nearer free throw lane line extended, or none of the above.
We got 10 seconds. 5, 4. I went to private school. 3, 2, 1, and
Well, Carmine gave the answer away if everybody was paying attention to how Carmine was talking.
no comment. All right, Josh, what do you got for us?
All right. Well, I want to see what the scores were. Carlos, I think you're trying to talk, and we can't understand you.
I think Carlos is talking to us. Carlos is talking to us from his living room.
Exactly. You're gonna pop up those scores for us, Carmine?
Yes, sir.
All right, sweet.
I had it. That's why.
All right. So nobody thought that it was the nearer sideline. So good. We're not going to take it from underneath the basket and just run over to the sideline and throw it in. Although we do that in the NBA, but not in high school. The spot designated behind the backboard. So we're never going to throw the ball inside the lane lines. We're always going to be outside those lane lines. And so then the nearer free throw lane line extended is correct. And so you've got your free throw lane lines that come all the way down and touch the end line. So we are going to throw the ball in just outside. Yes, just sorry. High school and college. So just outside the lane line is where we're going to throw the ball in the near spot. If it's right down the middle, pick one. Don't force a switch though. So if it's a two-man crew, pick the spot you're already on at lead. If it's a three-man crew, then it depends on how much you like your partners and whether you want to get slot out of slot or not. And then you can do it. It's not too hard of a switch, and your partners will look at you like, come on, man, really? But yeah, we're going to go to the free throw lane line extended. All right, Mario, T-Lot, one of you guys take this one. I need a break.
I don't know that they're, I think they're online, but I don't know if they're with us or not.
Well, let's see. T-Lot is. I don't know what happened to Mario. Is he not here anymore? I know he was kind of jumping around. All right, looks like it's you, T-Lot. T-Lot ain't here either. All right, fine. I'll keep going. Let's make sure we talk about in our pregame intentional, flagrant, or technical fouls, and what are the differences between them. That's important. We don't want to get those confused. We don't want to call a flagrant foul an intentional foul and administer that incorrectly. We don't want to call everything a technical foul because we don't know. So a player driving to the basket, he gets hit, he gets an aggressive foul taken, and we come running in and we're signaling technical foul, right? We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we get our fouls correct, we administer them correctly, and we know what we're calling and what situation. Pop-up question. Take it away, Carmine.
All right, moving right along here. A flagrant foul is only a personal foul, only a technical foul, violent contact such as kicking and kneeling, hanging on the rim.
All right.
You have 1 minute.
All right, a flagrant foul is only a personal foul, only a technical foul, violent contact such as kicking and kneeing, or hanging on the rim.
All right, that's it for the time here. And we're going to share the results. And let's see what we got here.
All right, only a personal foul. So that's incorrect. The personal fouls are personal fouls. And a flagrant foul is going to be counted towards a player's personal 5 fouls that they're allowed in the game. but is not only a personal foul, as by definition. Nobody thought it was a technical foul or hanging on the rim, and most everybody thought that it was violent contact. So there's certain words that are important in defining different fouls, and it's helpful to know what some of those words are so that in a game situation you've kind of memorized, okay, oh, that play was violent and or excessive, right? So those would be two words, and you can look in the rule book and you can find, and so what I'll do is I'll go through the rule book and I'll highlight specific vocabulary words that help me define to where I can narrow it down, right? Because to try to memorize the entire definition of a particular type of foul can be difficult and create confusion. And so if you can find a few words that can help you to identify what type of a foul it is, then you can kind of skip that step of the confusion of, oh, wait, is it intentional? Is it technical, personal, right? And so you can skip all of that. You know what type of foul it is, and you can jump straight to, okay, how are we going to administer that? So.
And I think, Josh, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, and now a lot of the guys that are on the lesson with us, you know, they've had probably taken the test 2 or 3 times. A lot of these questions in the past are word for word right out of the book. So basically, you know, when you go to look up in, let's say, for example, Rule 4 or Rule 10, I think this is probably in Rule 4, you know, you're going to see flagrant foul, and it's going to be word for word. It's going to say violent contact such as kicking and kneeling. So have you found that same thing, Josh? I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically, it's word for word. So,
yeah.
And I'm not saying to look at.
You talking about the test, right?
Yes.
Okay. Throw that out this year. And reason why I'm telling you that is because FHSAA has contracted arbiter to do the test. And if the basketball test is anything like the football test, it's situations, meaning you may need to have your case book this year, meaning it may not be word for word on these tests. So you're going to have to do a little bit more studying of your rules and take your time. But again, these pop-up questions are beautiful questions, and some of the things that we're talking about, you must know the rule. It may not be word for word this year. So be prepared for a way different test than what we've had in the past. That's just from some of the football guys that have done basketball, that's been doing basketball. They said the test was a whole lot different, and the FHSA has contracted arbiter to write their test this year.
So if it's anything like the college test, it is exactly that. It's very situation. It's very like plays, like here's the play. So it is very case book. And so you'll be greatly, you'll do yourself a favor by having your case book with you. And what you can do is, because it may not be word for word like it's been in the past, but there's going to be certain words in there that you're going to know, okay, that's the word that I can look for to try to find the specific casebook play. And so you can look for a word like violent. Oh, violent. Which foul is violent? And then you'll be able to find casebook plays. And so you kind of pick out some of the words that are like, oh, that's the word that's going to help me identify this particular situation. So it is a very helpful way of.
Not the same stuff, is it? Or maybe it is. It just says hot cinnamon rolls and something too.
We got someone having some hot cinnamon rolls, which sounds delicious. I wish I had some right now.
And another thing on the test, though, also, everybody, that the last 2 or 3 years, they've allowed a window of basically a month for you to accomplish the test. So, let's say that indeed that this year's test is a lot like the football test insofar as there's more situational questions. Hey, that's fine because, you could do, I think the time frame is almost like a month to do the test. So basically you could take 2 or 3 questions and take your time over a day or two. So there's no need to rush. And so I think that that's a good thing because, before 2 or 3 years ago, they gave you a time frame of like, I think it was maybe 2 hours to do the whole test. And so now you could take a whole month if you want to.
Yep. All right, moving right along. So we're going to wrap up our pregame, talking a little bit about partnering, making sure we're all on the same page out there as partners and the importance of us being the best team on the floor. There's going to be 2 basketball teams, but then there's our team. And we want our team to be the most tight-knit, cohesive team out there. Because the teams that are playing the game is going to probably be decided. The who wins and who loses is probably going to be decided by the team that plays the best as a team. But ultimately, how the game flows, whether we're inserting ourselves in situations where we shouldn't, whether we're letting the game get out of control, that's all up to us. And so it's important that we as officials be a team. First of all, we have to be a team, and that we are the best team on the floor. We've got to make sure, and we've got to adjudicate our fouls appropriately. If we have to take a minute and get the teams to the benches because we had a weird situation, and we got to make sure that we administer free throws in the correct order or whatever, we do that. Send the teams to the bench, and we talk about that in our pregame. If we got to take a minute to make sure that we got a weird situation and we want to make sure that we get it right, then we do that. But we never do that without the players being at the benches. So we'll talk about that. And finally, we finish out our pregame by talking about how we want to beat the tape. And so what that means is that somebody is there recording, and you never know when a play is going to be uploaded to YouTube or Facebook or whatever. You never know when a coach is going to send a clip of a play to the assigner. You never know when that tape, whose hands, you never know when a game film ends up in a college assigner's hands. We want to beat the tape. When we go back and we watch the tape of our game, we want to know that we officiated the game so well that we were able to beat the tape. And if we can't make a call that beats the tape, then we don't make the call. All right, halftime conference.
Hey, Josh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Explain to them by what you mean by beating the tape a little bit more, please.
So beating the tape is when you're aware that the game is being filmed, and so it's officiating the game in such a way that the tape is not going to win, right? So it keeps us from guessing is essentially what it does. It keeps us from those situations where, oh, that feels like a foul, I'm going to go get it, right? We want to know that the tape has our back on every call that we make. And we don't want to be making calls because we're anticipating something and then we blow our whistle and the tape's going to beat us on that one. We thought there was going to be a foul and we blew our whistle. And when we go back and watch that later, there's going to have been no contact there, right? So we don't want the tape to win. We want the tape to always back up our calls or our lack thereof or what we decide to pass on. And so beating the tape is taking that split second because it's low post play and there's contact, but the defender's vertical. So we hold that whistle for just a second. Oh yeah, the defender was vertical. I'm going to lay off it, right? Whereas if boom, contact foul. Dang it. It's going to beat me on this one. The defender was vertical and I just took a foul. So it's that little bit of patience at the right time. It's that, but it's also that knowing the situations where, oh, I have to come in and get that right away, because that's a hard foul with a drive to the rim. And I don't want to wait a second on that one, because then a second guy's going to come flying in, and I got to be quick on that one. So it's officiating with that understanding of, I don't want to be putting something into this game that shouldn't be there, and then watching the tape later and going, oh, I should have laid off that one. Or watching the tape later and saying, oh, I should have got that one right away. That was a hand check. We had just called it on this end of the floor. It's the consistency required to be the best team on the floor. All right, halftime conference. In our halftime conference, we're going to talk about our first half game assessment, how we assess ourselves, how we assess some of the plays that we had, some of the situations that we had, assess ourselves as a crew, maybe talk about, hey, we kind of let things get a little loose there at the end. So let's make sure that we don't let the second half start the way that the first half ended. Or we've been calling it real tight. Maybe we can loosen up a little bit in the second half, because we've got some guys in foul trouble and they're not really, the freedom of movement isn't being affected. And so we want to talk about that stuff. How do we want to assess ourselves? What could we have done better? What are some things that we could do different? Now we've seen the flow of the game. We've seen some of the players. We know who the shooters are. We know what some of the tendencies are. Talk about plays and situations, lots of plays. Always be talking about plays. Remember your plays. When you have a play, remember it. When you have a question about a play, it's your secondary area of coverage, and you thought about coming and getting it. It looked real bad, but that's a veteran official, and but really, right? So you decide to pass on it, and then you're thinking, man, I feel like I should have taken a foul there. Catalog that, because we want to go back at halftime, and we want to talk about that as a crew. We want to learn from that situation. What could we have done better, and what adjustments do we need to make? Game and crew assessment. We talked about that. Plays and situations, adjustments. Already went over that. All right, and then our post-game conference. So now the game is over. We're back in, we got Elu breaking down some film. Wouldn't that be an awesome post-game to be in? So we're gonna talk about our overall game assessment. How did we have any weird plays? Did we have any last-second shots? Did we have a blowout? Did we manage the blowout well? Our overall game assessment. Again, we want to talk about plays and situations from the second half, and what are some things that we can learn from? What can we learn from our partners? And guys, this is like, it's important, especially in a post game. It is extremely important that we check our egos at the door. We can't be coming into, we're not going to get better as officials if we are constantly trying to defend our plays and defend the decisions that we made, right? We've got to have the ability to talk about the game when it's over, and be able to give and receive constructive criticism, and not be defensive in those situations. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a back and forth, right? There can absolutely, if I have a partner that's saying, hey, I feel like we should have called, we should have got this play differently. And I say, well, actually from my angle, I saw that play very differently. And so we can talk about it. So it doesn't mean that we just, don't say anything, but we also want to have a humble attitude, because that's what's going to give us the opportunity to grow as officials, is when we can go into the game and we can evaluate the game, and we can talk about plays, and we can be like, okay, yeah, maybe, I'm going to go take a look at that play. I'm going to get the game film, and I'm going to take a look at that one, because I saw it differently, but I could see how, what you're saying, that might be a situation that I need to get a little better at, right? Having that ability to do our own self-evaluation, where we're honestly evaluating ourselves, and where we can grow because we can receive the input from our partners these are some things that you might want to work on. So that is so important for us to grow as officials.
Hey, can I interject real quick?
Yes, sir.
There was two great words that he used in what he just said. You have to be honest with yourself, and from my angle, okay? From my angle means, I mean, it changes a play right away because we are looking at plays from different angles. So those of us who are veterans, when you're talking to a younger official, you know, it should be, hey, from my angle, I think we missed this. What did you have? Don't say, no, we flat out missed it. We need to, I mean, this class is to teach us how to communicate with each other as well. And egos, again, need to be checked at the door. Because I tell you today, a rookie official can come in who then sat there and watched my game and say, hey, Carlos, this play at this time in the game, you know, looked like, you know, from my angle in the stands, he didn't get touched or hit. What did you have? Okay, well, from my angle, this is what I saw. So if we use the word my angle, it opens the communication line and nobody should be able to get defensive. And honesty, because that film will tell you. You can say, oh, no, I didn't miss any calls tonight. Not a single call. Is that truly being honest? So we got to check those those three things are very important. Ego, being honest with yourself, and learning how to talk to your fellow officials to where you don't make them defensive right off the bat. Thank you, Josh.
Yes, sir. And so now we're on our way home. Game's over. And maybe we get home, maybe we have access to the game film and we can go through and watch the game, evaluate ourselves. I cannot stress the importance of getting a game film and evaluating yourself and watching your game film and doing tape review. It is the single best way to improve as a referee. And you got to look at it from all the different angles. You got to watch, okay, am I in the right position on the floor? If I'm at trail, am I at the right spot? Did I get deep enough? Am I too high? Am I getting the right angle for the play? Right? So we look at positioning, and we want to watch and make sure that our positioning is good. We want to make sure that we've always got the right angle for the play. And are we moving the dribble drive to the basket? Right? Are we coming down with that play while it's in our primary before we hand it off to the lead? Right? We want to look at our positioning and watch it from a positioning perspective. We want to look at it and make sure that our eyes are in the right place. Right? When I review game film, one of the main things that I'm looking at is off the ball coverage and make sure, am I looking where my partners are not? Especially when I'm off the ball. Obviously, if you've got an on the ball matchup and it's in your primary, then you're going to be right there. That's easy. But if it's not, if I don't have that matchup and this matchup is happening in my secondary, I want to make sure that I am not looking where one of my other two partners is also looking. Right? There are potentially 5 matchups on the court at any given time, and there's 3 referees. So if 2 referees are looking at the same matchup, that means that one referee has the other 4. And that's what we have to stay out of. So when I watch game film and I'm doing review, I'm looking at my eyes, make sure, oh, wait, why was I looking at that play? Because lead's looking at that play too, right? That's a problem. I gotta remember that and be like, okay, in this situation, that's not where I should be looking. After reviewing our tape, or if you don't have access to the tape and you're just replaying plays in your mind as you're driving home, have a notebook, have something, or take notes on your phone, or however you do that. Take notes so that you will remember, so that you can remind yourself during, leading up to your next game. Okay, these are the situations, right? We want to learn to catalog the plays. We want to know what situations in the game are our strengths and our weaknesses, because we want to be prepared for those weaknesses, and we want to visually prepare ourselves going into the next game. Okay, I got this play wrong 3 times. So I want to play that play over, and how should I have been in position to get that play right? And so we want to take notes so that you can pull it up before your next game and look over them and remember the things that happened in the last game that you're going to do differently in the next one.
Josh, what's the best way to get game film? What do you recommend? What have you found is the best way that I could get clips of myself or of the whole game for that matter?
So at the high school level, it's definitely tougher, but it's not impossible. So I have been known to take my kids with me to games and record them myself. I do that actually quite frequently. If I know the coach, as far as like I've had, interactions with the coach in the past, I might be aware, okay, this is Ben over at Dr. Phillips. I can just say, hey, Ben, you mind sending me that film? And I'll usually, even try to kind of work it into a little comment with the coach. Like, he's complaining about something and I'm over there at slot during a free throw and he's got my ear. And a lot of times I'll just send it with, hey, send it to me after the game. I'll promise you I'll take a look at that play. Right. So that's kind of my way of saying, hey, send me the game film. And I've gotten game film that way a couple times at the high school level. But obviously, recording the game yourself is the best way to do it. But if you've got access to, I know some of the games also get uploaded into like Huddle and some of these other platforms. Yes. And so if you know a coach, if you like have a relationship outside, not in that game specifically, but you've got a relationship with a coach or someone who has access to Huddle or some of these other platforms, then you could ask to get some film that way. So, there's different ways. Carlos, what is your, I know it can be a touchy thing sometimes to be, asking coaches for game film and things like that. So what is kind of your take on the best way to do that?
I mean, like you say, the great way when, like you say, they got your ear, you're over at the sideline. Some platforms do have like Wakaiba and First Academy. There are some schools that, live stream their games. So nowadays with this internet, there's a lot of places that do live stream or do have their games where they do put up on their website. And that's just some of it is just a conversation with the AD. Hey, is there a way I can get a copy of the game, or talking to the coaches? And again, best way is also to bring a family member. But what I want to bring up also, not everybody knows how to break down game film. So what that means, you second and third year officials, maybe it's finding that mentor, like calling up Josh. Hey, Josh, I'm going to send you this game film, and can you help take a look at it? I think, can you help me break down? I think I had a play at this at the 4-minute mark of the fourth quarter that, what do you think? So it's not necessarily that that's how you're going to learn. So what I'm saying is, don't try to break game film down if you don't know what you're actually looking for. Now, you veteran officials, same thing. I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm just now beginning to understand film breakdown because I was not brought up on film breakdown, to be quite honest. I mean, and I'm learning every year by looking at film, not just of me, but other officials. Are you in the right position? And was that the right call from the right person in the right position, or should it have been somebody else's call? So grab a mentor. You're gonna hear it. I can't tell you who your mentor should be because your game might be aligned with Mario's game and Carmine's game is aligned with Josh's game. and that's who you guys can conversate and click with. But find somebody that you can talk with. Even if you sit down with another official to break down film as you're early, you may be able to spot a few things, but it takes time. I mean, you will not learn how to break game film down overnight. It is consistently, it's work. It's work. So get with somebody that knows, or send clips to other people and say, hey, what do you think? Did I miss the call? Was I in the right position? You know, reach out. Okay, so that's what this is all about. It's a network of a brotherhood of officials. So reach out and try to learn, you know, what does it take to learn how to break down film as well. Thanks, Josh.
And also with that as well, when you do get your film, don't fast forward to the play that you just got to know, did you get it right or wrong? Because you made a call and the whole place went berserk and started booing. Don't go there. Don't start there. Start at the beginning with the basics, the very beginning of the film. Force yourself to have that discipline to not have to go and know whether you were right or wrong. You don't get better by going and either validating the call or dropping your head because you're like, damn it, I missed it, right? We don't get better by doing that. We get better by starting from the beginning and starting with the basics. Am I in the right position? Do I have the right angles? Am I hustling? All of those things. Is my court presence good? All of that. That's we have to start with the basics, and we get better by improving in those areas, and not by just jumping to the big call and, oh, sweet, I got it right. We feel better about ourselves. We didn't just get better as an official by doing that. So force yourself to have that discipline to actually review it. And like Carlos said, one of the other great things that you can do, which is quick and easy, is just find a few guys that you know, and create a little WhatsApp group or text group or whatever, and just send plays. You know, use your phone if you find a play like First Academy. They put on a tournament, you know, every Christmas. And it's a great tournament to go work, the city of whatever they call it tournament. And it's a great tournament to go work because all the games are going to be uploaded to or live streamed on YouTube. And so you can go and you can watch the game on YouTube after you work a game there. So a lot of them, especially the tournaments are a great opportunity to get game film because a lot of that stuff is live streamed. And also, you know, a lot more schools are now live streaming their film. And so, but sometimes some of the schools will actually live stream it, but then they'll take it down because the coaches are, you know, they don't want to leave it there for another coach to come and learn about them and watch it. So be aware, you might want to go get it and look at it. There's also software that you can use to basically download a YouTube video or download videos from different platforms. So, you know, if you know somebody who's kind of a technical person, you might ask them, hey, you know, I had this game but I want to be able to download it because I want to be able to review it. The way I review game film is I use a program called VLC. And so I make sure that I actually get the video file. So even if it's on YouTube, I strip it off of YouTube and create a video file. And then I have keyboard shortcuts to where my fingers just go on the keyboards like normal. And if I want to jump 5 seconds forward, then the keyboard shortcut is J. If I want to jump 10 seconds forward, it's K. And then same thing for going backwards. And then I have a button to record it so that I can create a clip. And so I'm sitting here and it'll take me sometimes 15 minutes to watch 45 seconds of game because I'm jumping. Okay. Oh, that was the wrong movement. Oh, I should have stepped up instead of down. Like I'm breaking down the movements so that I'm making sure that I'm covering all of those basics. And so that can be a helpful thing if you're, you know, if you've got some software to where you can create shortcuts to kind of jump around in the film so you can look at it from all the different angles. And I'll watch plays from each of the positions, right? So I'm at trail, but okay, but what did slot see on that play? Oh, actually, slot had a better angle. The play was coming towards slot, and I took a foul, and I had a hand check, and did I have the right angle? Well, let me. Oh, look, slot had a perfect angle. Why in the world? And it was coming at him already. Why did I take that foul? Right. So I'll watch a specific play from the angle that each.
Hey, Josh,
Josh,
hold on a second.
Yep.
Josh, hey, somebody got a TV on or something? Getting a little.
Yeah, I think I took care of the problem. I found it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
All right, I think that's good. So honest self-evaluation. That's how we get better. Honest self-evaluation. Get in a group, send some plays. You're going to hear things you don't want to hear. I every play that I send to my mentors, one of them pisses me off with his response every single time. Every single time. And I will call him up, and it's usually the same guy. And I'm like, dude, no way. No way. And so we'll have banter about it. But I always know I'm going to get pissed off because Antonio is going to tell me something that I don't want to hear. Or I'll send the play, and this is the great thing about having a mentor. I'll send the play like, hey, take a look at this play, right? And it was a block charge. And what do I get back? Hey, what happened with the screen up top before the block charge? Like, what are you talking about? There was nothing there. Oh, you're right. Right? All of a sudden, I had a block charge that never should have happened because I should have taken an illegal screen. Right? You never would know that if you don't have the mentors or even the peers. Doesn't have to be a mentor. Peers can be incredibly helpful. So get in a group, send plays, and expect to be offended because you're going to hear things that you don't want to hear, and suck it up and take it and learn from it and get better.
All right. Real quick, there was a question that was asked. Anytime you are on a basketball court working a game, it is a public place. So there is no Privacy Act or laws because it is under the National High School Federation umbrella. So any game can be filmed, taped, shared, displayed. So you do not have to worry about signing a consent form or getting a consent form when you ask these coaches for copies of their game film. So just it's just like everything that gets posted on YouTube. There is no signed releases for YouTube for all these games that are posted up there. So you expect no right to privacy when you're working at basketball games. So everything you can and do and will do will be on film. Okay.
Looks like we got some questions.
What we got?
Justin has a question that he wants to ask on video.
That's what I was just talking about.
He just answered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just a question.
Let's see. So that's it. So what do we have now? We got some plays we're going to go over?
Now it's a presentation. How long is this presentation, Carmine?
Yeah, actually, we got a couple videos, so you could sit back, maybe get some popcorn or something if you want, and we got a couple videos here.
Hey, that's what I want to ask. How much time on each one? Because right now we're roughly 8:20. So they're both under 40 minutes combined?
No, they're both about 30 minutes.
Combined?
No, they're both an hour.
No, we can only do one of them then.
Okay, well, I guess we could do this one.
Yeah, I don't want to keep people to 9:30.
All right, so here we go. This first one is continuous motion. So let's see what this man has to say.
Always, every single time. Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Basketball Rules Expert. the show where we discuss National Federation of High School Basketball rules with the sole intent of bringing the rules off of the written page, breathing life into them, and making them something that you can own and bring with you onto the basketball court. Hello again, everybody. My name is Greg Austin with abetterofficial.com. I've been officiating high school basketball for over a decade, and I am a basketball rules expert. The purpose of this show is to help you on your journey to becoming a basketball rules expert as well. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing intentional foul administration and our good friend, continuous motion. Let's get started with the show. Question: which is true if A1 commits an intentional foul during B1's successful try for goal? A, B1 shall be awarded 1 free throw. B, B1 shall be awarded 2 free throws. C, any team B player shall be awarded 1 free throw. D, any team B player shall be awarded 2 free throws. Pretty clear what we have here. We have an intentional foul committed against a player who's attempting a try and the ball goes in the basket. How many free throws do we award in this situation? Let's talk about an intentional foul. This is a great opportunity to take a rule, the application of a rule, onto the court with you at all times and own it. What is the penalty for an intentional foul? Repeat after me. The penalty is 2 free throws by the offended player or their substitute, unless, small asterisk, unless the player attempted a 3-point try for goal and the try was unsuccessful. So, I'm attempting a 3-point goal, player shoves from behind. During the attempt, the ball misses. The result would be 3 free throws for the intentional foul. In all other instances, ball goes in the basket, ball doesn't go in the basket, 2 attempts, and the ball at the spot nearest the foul. The 2 attempts to be attempted by the offended player or their substitute. That's it. Always. Every single time, except for that one instance where the 3-point try and the attempt misses and an intentional foul is ruled. In that instance, it's 3. Every other instance, 2. The ball at the spot nearest the foul, the attempts for free throw attempted by the offended player or their substitute. You can imagine a scenario where an intentional foul occurs, excessive contact, the player is injured. Who will shoot their free throws? Their substitute. So let's go to Rule 10, Section 7, and go to the penalty section. Now, the penalty section for Rule 10 is oftentimes confusing. You look at it in the rules book and it seems to be a bit of a jumbled mess. Okay, we have to actually put together a couple of components here to determine that. 2 free throws if intentional or flagrant plus the ball for throw-in. That is clearly defined. Fouled in the act of shooting and the try or tap is unsuccessful, 2 free throws on a 2-point try or tap, 3 free throws on a 3-point try or tap, plus the ball for throw-in if intentional or flagrant. Okay, so what we have to do here, we have to combine Section 4 and Section 5. 2 free throws if intentional or flagrant, plus the ball for throw-in. Okay, but that doesn't address the scenario where a 3-point attempt is missed. If fouled in the act of shooting and try or tap is unsuccessful, B, 3 free throws on a 3-point try or tap plus the ball for throw-in if intentional or flagrant. So we go out of the court, we have it with us in our back pocket. What's the penalty for an intentional foul? Simple. 2 free throws to the offended player or their substitute plus the ball at the spot nearest the foul, unless, ding, little asterisk, that's a three-point attempt that misses. Then it's going to be 3 free throws by that offended player or their substitute, plus the ball at the spot nearest the foul. Okay, here's our follow-up question. How many free throws are awarded for an intentional foul? You should have it. It's right there. It's right there for you. It's always 2 free throws to the offended player or their substitute, plus the ball at the spot nearest the foul, unless it's a missed 3-point attempt, in which case it's 3 free throws and the ball at the spot nearest the foul. And our answer is D, 2 free throws if committed on a successful 2-point try, and 3 free throws if committed on an unsuccessful 3-point try. Question: which is true of continuous motion? Possible answers are A, it ends when a shot is either made or has missed. B, it only applies if the player is in the air when fouled. C, it never applies when a player is fouled on the floor, quotes. D, it applies when the shooter is tapping the ball toward the goal when fouled. Which is true of continuous motion? My experience is there's a lot of confusion about continuous motion. That's my experience. Officials have a hard time talking about it or defining it. Let's take a look at the definition of continuous motion, which is found in our very good friend, rule number 4, the most important rule in the rules book. Rule number 4, section 11, is going to define what continuous motion is. Now, there are a lot of rules in the rules book. If we look at this rule, maybe we have a clearer understanding of why people may have a hard time discussing it. I'm going to take a big breath here. Continuous motion applies to a try or tap for field goals and free throws, but it has no significance unless there is a foul by any defensive player during the interval, which begins with the habitual throwing movement, starts a try or with the touching on a tap, and ends when the ball is clearly in flight. That's Article 1 of the rule. That is a run-on sentence that is unclear and basically a word salad that we're going to have to parse apart. So it's understandable if you found yourself, well, I can't clearly define what it is, but I know it when I see it, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a moment and break that apart. Continuous motion applies to a try or tap for field goal and free throws, right? So it only applies to when there's an attempt to score, but it has no significance unless there is a foul by any defensive player. So it does not apply to the game of basketball unless there's a foul by a defensive player during an interval, right? So now it's going to describe an interval of time that the foul must occur during this interval of time. And if we extrapolate this interval into the game of basketball, we're talking about maybe less than a second or a maximum of maybe 2 seconds. This is something that happens in the blink of an eye. Okay, but the interval begins when the habitual throwing movement starts a try or with the touching on a tap and ends when the ball is clearly in flight. So imagine a player standing on the court, they bounce the ball, they begin their habitual throwing motion, and then they release the ball on a try for goal. The time between when they begin their habitual motion and when they release the ball is the interval of time that we're evaluating. If any defensive player commits a foul during that brief interval, If an opponent fouls after a player has started to try for goal, he or she is permitted to complete the customary arm movement, and if pivoting or stepping when fouled, may complete the usual foot or body movement in any activity while holding the ball. These privileges are granted only when the usual throwing motion has started before the foul occurs and before the ball is in flight. Those are two almost disastrous articles in their ability to be unclear. But what we've defined is the period of time during which the foul can occur. But we're talking about when a foul occurs during this brief interval. If that foul occurs, the ball does not become dead and the player is allowed to complete their habitual shooting motion, and the result of the try shall count. Do we have a clear understanding of what continuous motion is? Good. Okay, so which is true of continuous motion? It's kind of an unsatisfying question, but which is true? A, it ends when the shot is either made or has missed. That is not correct. It only applies if the player is in the air when fouled. No, it applies during the interval when the player has begun their habitual throwing motion. Imagine them shooting a free throw or a set shot. They're not going to jump to shoot the free throw or set shot. C, it never applies when a player is fouled on the floor. If we parse that out, on the floor would be before the shot. But it can apply before the shot if the foul occurs during the interval when they have begun their habitual throwing motion, which may be simply the gathering of the ball on a layup or beginning their shooting motion. D, it applies when the shooter is tapping the ball towards the goal when fouled. Yes, it does say specifically in the rule it applies to a try for goal or a tap. So the answer would be D, it applies when the shooter is tapping the ball towards the goal. All right, so we've defined continuous motion, but let's go back and look at one important point of the equation. Any defensive player. So, player has begun their habitual try for motion. The defensive player pushes through a screen in an attempt to block the shot, displacing the screener. That foul occurs during the interval. This player is allowed to complete the motion even though the player wasn't necessarily guarding them. Or off ball. Player begins their habitual try for goal on a layup, let's say. Defensive player, in an attempt to gain rebounding position, displaces another player. Whistle blows before the player has released, this player has released the try, then they release the try. The foul occurred by any defensive player during the interval that the offensive player had begun their habitual try for motion and had released the ball. During that time, the foul occurred. Therefore, the offensive player gets to complete, and all is well. That is going to wrap up this episode of Basketball Rules Expert. If you found value, hit like, hit subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our content, which is coming out 2 times a week as we get started with the basketball season. As we always do, you can go take a quiz that discusses what we talked about today, not just the initial questions, but additional questions to make sure that you have an understanding of the rules involved. The quiz can be linked up here. Follow that, take the quiz, see how you do. As always, if you want to support the show, you can always buy us a coffee at abetterofficial.com/coffee. And just like our test questions, we've got multiple choice. You could choose this video, or you could choose this video. See you in the next episode. Take care.
All right, everyone. Everybody kind of understood that. Any questions out there regarding the video? Everybody go to sleep on us?
Don't be shy. Come on.
Nah, I'm still awake.
I'm awake. Still here.
All
So
right,
there was
no questions.
no questions on the video, huh?
How long is this next video, Carmine?
Much
Because that
covered
wasn't that.
everything.
Yeah, that video wasn't that long. How much longer on the other one do you think? You know?
Yes, sir. Let me check it out here.
Because it's really important.
This one's a little longer. This is 30 minutes.
Yeah, no, we'll have to play that. That'll make it at 9 o'clock. You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and play it. I mean, the extra 4 minutes. I mean, classes from 6 to 9. Go ahead and run it real quick.
Pre-game discussion. Now, of course, you make those adjustments between a 2 and a 3-person game, but you can use the same type of discussion points and make those adjustments as you are, depending on what type of crew you're in. Now, I like to use a whiteboard that has the ability to use a dry erase marker. Some folks use a little magnetic boards where they can move the little officials around, or you can use a card and just point to it or write on it, whatever you see fit. But I think it's important that you have two things, that you have one, a very consistent method of discussion points that you walk through, and it doesn't have to take long, you know, it could be 5-10 minutes, but as long as you kind of hit these key points before you go out on the court, then you have some type of something visual that you can kind of work through as a crew and kind of actually show those areas of primary coverage and line coverages and positioning, etc. So let's kind of walk through this here real quick. So I always start with game management, and we always talk about pregame on the court. So what are the things we talk about? And one of the things I always like to discuss is, okay, we're going to be on the court 15 minutes prior to the start of the game. This is for an NFHS contest. And in a two-person game, we'll have the referee will observe the visiting team, and the umpire will observe the home team. Now, in a three-person game, it's opposite. We'll have the referee will, I'll stand in the division line, and we'll have U1 will take the home team, and U2 will take the visitors. And I always like to discuss that at some point in time, we're going to go check the books. So as a referee, I mentioned to my crew that I will check that at right at the 10-minute mark, and as soon as I'm done verifying that the books are ready to go, let's get the captains. So as soon as I turn around, I like to get the captains, but hey, your crew and you as a referee might like to get them at a different time. That's something you can determine in your pregame discussion. And in New Jersey, we actually have a little disclosure. We have to talk with the coaches, and we bring them out and have a couple words with them, with the captains. But we do that, and then we dismiss them, and we move on. And that is our pregame discussion with the coaches and captains. So we talk about the jump ball. So now we're kind of getting into the game situation. In a two-person crew, it's always important to mention that since there's only two of you there, that the referee is going to toss the ball, and the U1 or the other umpire is going to chop. You're the only person with the whistle, so you need to blow it dead if it's a bad toss. In a three-person game, the U1 is on the table side, and even though you have, you got two other officials with the whistle in their mouth during the toss, I always like to say, hey guys, you're not going to hurt my feelings if it's a bad toss and we throw it again. What you will do is you'll hurt my feelings if it's a bad toss and we start the game in an ugly mode. So the initial few conversations that we have around pregame, books, captains and coaches, and the jump ball is just getting the game off to a really, really good start. Now we transition the conversation into our primary coverage areas. So let's look at this in two different aspects. What do we talk about when we're in a two-person game versus a three-person game? So one of the first things I'd like to talk about using the whiteboard are primary coverage areas. So here we have a two-person and three-person game board in front of us, so let's talk about each one separately. So primary coverage area, it's certainly worth reviewing, especially officials that are going back and forth between two and three-person games, is just talk about your primary coverage area. So in a two-person game, just like to say, just remind ourselves that the lead official has the rectangle. Keep the head down, stay in that box, and make sure you're refereeing all that area. The trail can take all this stuff down here, dribble drives to the basket. Always like to say as a kind of point of reference that, hey, if you're the trail official or an outside official and you see a travel violation in the paint, then definitely take it. Come in and take it hard. And take any of these fouls that are coming down here from your primary coverage area. Don't forget, you have all this area over here to cover. And we'll talk about this line here a little bit, but basically have the trail and the two-person game has such a big area. You want to make sure that you're very active, kind of working hard and working that arc and staying off the sideline, staying away from the division line, and working hard. The lead has such a small area. Be very patient down here and let the play come to you. When we talk about a three-person crew, obviously much different primary coverage areas. I always draw a little split in the lane, point out that it's such a small area that the lead has in a three-person crew, and remind ourselves as a crew, especially again if we're jumping back and forth between 2- and 3-person games throughout the season, that the trail official has that shooter all the way down into the corner here, right? And the C has anything, especially starting in their area, that's working its way into the lane. So the lead has such a very small area here, and I always like to point out, let's make sure that our center official is working hard to take those plays on their side of the basket line, and that the trail is staying with those shooters that are going down in the corner, and the lead has such a very, very small area here. So one of the things I always like to talk about are line responsibilities. So we're talking about a two-person game here. We're looking on the left side of this basketball diagram. That, of course, we always like to say that the trail has, their sideline, has the division line, and has all the lines of the backcourt. And the lead has their end line and has the sideline to their side, either left or right. Now, the one piece of this, when we talk about line coverage in a two-person game, I think it's really important to talk about in a pregame is the free throw line extended and above. This is a dual line of responsibility. So, either official can call this line above the free throw line extended. So the lead primarily has that line all the way up. However, I always like to say, if we're in a pressing situation or pressure situation in the front court, and the trail official comes over toward the basket line and is taking a look at that play, sometimes the trail might even come in the backcourt to get a good look at that play. Instead of having two officials peering up at that play, let's just make sure we have one person looking at that line above the free throw line extended, and the lead can now look inside, make sure there's no banging going on there, and the trail can actually cover that. And if the ball happens to go out on that line when the trail is over covering that, then the trail will administer that line. I always like to say, if you blow the whistle in the front court, that's your line. So if you're over there covering that, and that's a dual line of responsibility, make sure you're right on top of it, you blow it, and we don't have two people looking at that one piece of the line. So let's look at the three-person spot. So same thing. We have line responsibilities. A little bit easier because we have three folks on the court. So we have sideline, end line, sideline. Trail has all the lines in the backcourt. But of course we have this line right here, right? So that's our trouble spot in a three-man game. Just like this can be a trouble spot in a two-person game as well. That's a line sometimes you need to give the lead a little bit of help on. So you like to say in a pregame, if the ball goes out of bounds on this line as a lead, if you are not sure, of who it went out on, just blow the whistle, stop the clock, raise your hand, and let's get some eye contact and walk toward each other. And as the C in a three-person game or as a trail in a two-person game, we'll come down and give you some help on that. So just stop the clock and we'll come together. If you're not sure and both of us are not sure, then we will go to the arrow on that play. So from a line coverage perspective, we of course have in a three-person game, we also have the C who can help on any deflected balls that happen to go into the backcourt. So always be ready for those types of plays. Now when we talk about three-point shot coverage, so now we're just working our way down the checklist here. And three-point shot coverage in a two-person game, you have that three-point arc that goes all the way across to the free throw line extended. One of the things I always like to say in a two-person game in our pregame discussion is, let's let the trail take a better look at that. We talk about this kind of gray area over here, that's right, because it's sometimes hard to see, but the trail has such a better look at that play than the lead does. Let the lead focus on all the banging that's going on in the paint, and the trail has that shooter over here. Let's just not have two folks with the 3-point signal going up, so we have two officials watching a shooter and no one watching off the ball. And that goes the same thing in a 3-person game. In our pregame discussion, I always like to say, since the trail has it over a little bit further here, okay, the C has much smaller 3-point arc, but we have that kind of gray area in the middle here. Always like to say in a pregame, if you are the official that, if it's kind of in this gray area, let the trail take that and let the C work back inside. We always want the C kind of focusing more inside than outside. So give it up to the trail. If you have, for some reason, that the trail doesn't put the 3-point signal up, certainly you can take that. But we don't want two folks from the outside looking at our shooters. So whoever gets that hand up first in that gray area, let's let the other person make sure that we're focusing on the inside, so we're not having two officials focusing on the shooter and no one looking off the ball. Now let's talk a little bit about matchups and strong side. So in a 2-person game, typically you have, you're going to stay in your spots. You're not going to rotate during a live ball. But you can, if you have a particular matchup on this side, we'd like to say that the lead can come over and take a look at that play and kind of rotate over to get a better look at that strong side, especially if you have a lot of players on this side. But in a pregame, you should always say, if I do that, or if the lead does that, they could come over when the ball transitions back up court. They're not going to come up this side. They are going to come up, go back that other side, the side that they originally started on. And they never give up this line. So they're always going to be cognizant of the fact that even though that you come over here to cover this strong side play, you're not going to give up that line as the lead, that you're going to make sure that you cover all your lines and you're coming over to help out on this type of strong side area. Now, if we talk about on a 3-person crew on matchups and strong side, different story. So we want a very active lead, right? That we want the lead to be going back and forth based on the way the play dictates the coverage that's needed for the crew. So one of the things that I talk about in a pregame is that, let's not be led in our feet here and solid to the ground. Let's stay active. And we should never have a situation where the C is overloaded with too many folks. Now, if there's just a single matchup where maybe there's an offensive player and a defensive player in front of them, a single matchup, okay, especially if the ball's moving around a lot. But if we got a bunch of players over here, let's get the lead over to this side and start our rotation so that the trail can be drawn down and the C can now drop back into a new trail position, so that we always have two people on the ball side. The other thing I like to talk about is that when the ball is transitioning in a 3-person game from the back court to the front court, of course, the trail has the 10-second count. And let's say they start to dribble this way toward the C side. I always like to say, as a C, let's focus on the inside. Let's look inside, because the trail's got the 10-second count. And until that dribbler picks up the ball, stay with that count. Even if they might come over a little bit, out of their area, just stay with that count until they pick up their dribble. At that point in time, when that first dribble is picked up in the front court, now it's a decision time. So if it is right here, it's a single matchup. C can just, you have that matchup real nice. If maybe they come over into this area back here, the C now can decide, should I come back here? If so, if it's a high pressure, they might come back, take a look at it. That's going to start our rotation. And that's going to get everybody moving based on the situation. So again, what we like to say is, let's referee matchups, whether we're in a 2-person game or a 3-person game. Let's get our officials moving. We always like to have 2 officials on that strong side refereeing those matchups, so that the opposite official, which is the C or center, can work offside rebounding. So talk about off ball and rebounds. So in a 2-person game, typically the trail official is going to take all that weak side rebounding stuff. And again, you only have 2 people out there, so any official can take that, but let's make sure that the trails are looking for those types of things and aggressive from the trail, coming in and getting those. In a 3-person game, you have both the trail and the C that can look at that, but the C should definitely keep an eye on all this weak side rebounding stuff and be very active and come in and take those plays. So we talk about press coverage. In a two-person game, it's easy. As the new lead that's transitioning down the floor, if there is a press in the backcourt, 4 or more back there, you need to drift, stay back here. Don't be so quick to run down the floor. You need to stay back and help your partner, which is the new trail, transition up the court, and you need to help in any type of matchups that are going on in the backcourt. In a three-person game, it's much easier because the basket goes in, the trail is now going to transition down to become the new lead. It is a very lazy C. You don't really need to go anywhere. Just kind of sit still for a second and see what type of defense is being set up, because you have plenty of time to make that small transition down the floor. But stay there. If you have 4 or more players in the backcourt, let's make sure that we have the C and the trail officiating in the backcourt, and you're going to help the trail, because the trail is going to have the dribbler and the initial defender, but any type of quick throw off of that, you're going to look across the floor and you're going to see that first pass, and you're going to take any type of fouls or contacts or illegal plays that happen beyond that first matchup. So again, helping out on the press. Let's not make sure we're just running down the floor. Talk about in a pregame how you're going to help each other as a crew anytime there's a press situation. I always talk about asking for help because it's really important. We talked about that a little bit earlier, where you have these little areas of coverage where there might be a little bit of trouble, where you can always ask for a little bit of help. But anytime we have a situation where something goes out of bounds, or we might have a play that's kind of weird and you're not sure, just blow your whistle, raise your hand, and ask for help. We'll come in, we'll talk about it, and then you as the calling official will make that final determination. If for some reason, I always say in a pregame, hey, if I make a call and I'm the only one in the gym that saw this ball go out of bounds and I said it was white ball and everyone knew it was blue, then blow your whistle, come in and talk about it, and I will change my call if you have information provided that would be, make me change that call. And I'm not embarrassed by it. Let's just make sure that we get the call right. But let's come together and talk about that. So at any time we can ask for help, or you can offer help, and then we'll decide on which way is the best way to go. So I talk about free throws and bonus. So it's important, I always say in a pregame, hey, if we, whether it's a 2-person or a 3-person game, if we have free throw situations where guys are stepping in early, they're not waiting till the ball hits the ring on a free throw, let's nip that in the bud. Let's get that early. We don't want to make that first call in the closing minute or 2 of the game. Let's get that early. And let's make sure that we are looking to see when the teams are ready for the bonus, because we always want to make sure that our off official is identifying our shooters for us. So let's be cognizant of guys stepping in early. Let's be cognizant of when we're coming up to the bonus, whether it's a one-on-one or whether we're in the double bonus. The other thing I like to talk about is the AP arrow. So whether it's a 2-person or 3-person game, you're always going to have someone that's opposite the table. So whenever we have a change in AP arrow status, let's make sure we have at least one of the officials looking over there to make sure that arrow has changed. If they haven't changed, don't panic. We don't need to stop a live ball, but as soon as the ball becomes dead, let's stop, blow our whistle, and let's go over and fix that arrow. So somebody should be looking at it. Typically, it's a person that's opposite the table, but hey, the more of us that look at it, the better it's going to be. Let's be very cognizant. Anytime that AP arrow switches, let's have at least one official look at it, if not 2. Timeouts and substitutions. This is a big one. So in a 2-person game, if you are calling a timeout, we'd like to say, call it, go over to the table, administer it, and then come right back, okay, and mark your spot. And our other official is going to be in our 30-second position or in our 60-second position. So what we don't want to do is have a lot of flip-flopping and bouncing, switching during a dead ball. I like to say, let's do it by the book. You call it, you administer it. The other official who's at the division line will stay at the division line. Of course, that's in a 2-person game. In a 3-person game, it's the same thing, though. If you call it, you administer it. And our official that's furthest away is going to go down at the top of the key for a 30-second timeout, or is going to go to the opposite block for a 60-second timeout. And same thing here, 30s, 60s. And if you've called the timeout, you come and administer it and go right back to spot the ball. And with our timeouts, it's really important, especially in a three-person game where you have two folks that can go into the huddles and get them out of the huddles. So they're in their huddles, go in, give them that first horn warning, and then let them know, if that second horn goes, we're going to put the ball down. You don't need to stay in there and babysit, but just, hey, give them that warning. We're ready to go. Come back out, get in your position, and we're going to put the ball down and get ready to go and play. And I always like to say to my crew, hey, if you're still in the huddle there, I know you're still working to get them out, but don't hang around there forever. When you're done, get out of there. And as soon as you get back in position, if that team is still really lollygagging to get out there, we're going to put the ball down and get moving, per the rules. And we talk about substitutions. So in a two-person game, it's always opposite the table that will handle substitutions because you have a better look at the table. Let's say the table's over here. You have a better look at it. Now, in a three-person game, it's a little bit different because you have someone that's table side. They're much closer to the table. So in a three-person game, I would like to say, let's make sure that we have our person that's closest to the table will handle those substitutions. And let's make sure that we count, whether it's coming out of a timeout or coming out of a substitution, let's make sure if you're handling the huddles during a timeout, you count your players coming out. If you're handling a substitution, table side or opposite the table, you count those players. Not to say that everybody shouldn't be counting, but let's make sure the person that's handling those huddles or handling those substitutions is for sure getting a count. When we talk about halftime and end of game, so at halftime, I like to tell my crew that let's meet across away from the table over here, and let's wait till the coaches and teams clear the bench area. Don't like to go over and be ambushed at the table at halftime. So we'll wait till everybody clears, and if the coaches hang out there, we'll just wait. It's not a big deal. We'll wait till they clear, get whatever information they need from the table. We'll go over there. At the end of the game, different story. We're not going to hang around on the court. We're going to visually look over and make sure the scores table is fine. But at the end of the game, if this is where the exit is, we're gonna head for the exits at the end of the game. Let's don't worry about the ball. Let's not worry about the coaches. Let's just get off the court at the end of the game. So halftime, we have a meeting spot. At the end of the game, we have a plan that we are going out the door as soon as we just give a visual check to the scores table. And now we kind of go through these just points of emphasis really quick. And this is a great opportunity for your partners to kind of chime in with different ideas. So just talk about if there's any particular rule changes for this particular season. Might go through a couple of those, whether it has to do with even some points of emphasis around the rules. Are there any special signals that we might use as a crew? The one that I always talk about is, hey, one is if I am going to from inbounding the ball because we have some substitutions, I'm going to hold two hands up.
Yeah, Carlos.
Let's go ahead and end this. I mean, because we're going over some of the same things. He did go over some things that were absolutely great, but he's just reiterating some of the things that Josh had already went over. And again, if you picked up on if you picked up on some of the things he was saying, Josh did an outstanding job, but there are a couple little things that he brought up. But a pregame is going to be based on your crew, the experience of your crew, because we can probably go and find another pregame and they'll bring up some points that were not brought up in this presentation as well. I mean, it's going on 9 o'clock. First of all, I'd like to thank Josh for a great, outstanding job presenting tonight. Appreciate your help here, Josh, and stay tuned, guys. Those of you who don't know Josh or want to get to know Josh or may think you may be interested in Josh being a mentor, helping you out with film breakdown or any other presentations, or if you see him throughout the year, get in his ear, talk to him. Everybody. Email address is on the arbiter. I think his email address is probably on the presentation or somewhere you can get a hold of Josh. If not, email me or text me and I'll make sure that you guys can get a hold of Josh.
On the last slide here, Carlos, we're going to be flashing this. after every presentation, after every night. And basically, you know, people could take a screenshot of this, but this is basically your education committee with Crystal, the chairman, and then basically the presenters and the clinicianers. So I believe that each and every individual on this list would not only be a great mentor, but somebody that you could really pick their brain.
And that's what this is all about. I mean, we're trying to, with COVID, we're still trying to keep everybody educated and engaged. I believe Carl must have had a volleyball game tonight, which is another CFOA thing. So, you know, and he helped put together this presentation, and he's the one that is going to be providing every given night these different clinicians on the advanced class to do certain things and join us, ask questions, and be engaged with everyone. Do we have any questions that we'd like to ask? We'll take about 5 minutes of questions and we'll try to get them answered, and then we'll let you guys have the rest of your night. So do we have any questions? Somebody would like to ask any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to have Mario answer the question he asked.
Okay, what was the question?
Do the referees switch positions at halftime in a 3-man crew? Does the U1 always watch the home team?
Mario, you there? Mr. Mario. So
he might have stepped away.
Okay, so my answer, and I was kind of reading it. If I remember correctly, you know, I thought the rule book does state, you know, U1 has the home team and U2 has the visiting team. So when you come out, I mean, I would assume that you would follow that same principle. I mean, again, it might not state that it says in the second half, but it tells you that in the very first half that U1 has home and U2 has. So I would assume if we're watching teams after break, you would just go back to the rule book and follow the same team that you actually followed in the first half. Now, again, that's me assuming.
Carlos, you don't
because,
have to assume.
Okay.
Carlos,
Hey,
you
Crystal.
don't have to assume. It is right. You're correct. Hey.
Right. Hey.
So
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'll let Crystal, our education chairman, kind of close us out tonight. Josh did an outstanding job. We gave him his congratulations. We were asking questions. You know, any questions, we'll answer it. But then I'll let you, Crystal, go ahead and close us out tonight. Any more questions? Anybody else? All right, Crystal, go ahead if you'd like to finish us out tonight.
Do I close out in prayer?
Yeah, however you want to do it. You there, Miss Chris?
That was a silent.
Thank you.
I think she was going to do a silent prayer.
Thank
that
you
was
for attending our class. Can you hear me? I'm in a POE, so you may not be able to hear me. You may not be able to hear me that well. Don't have great reception out here, but.
All right, Krista, we can't hear you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you for attending the class and trying to help. Yeah, I figured that.
All right, we can't hear Crystal, but basically I think what she's saying is thank you everybody for attending the class, and you know, we are trying to elevate CFOA to a higher educational level. And since we don't have any more questions, appreciate everybody coming. We will talk to everybody. You'll see your email probably Sunday for Monday's class. Thank you again, everyone. Carmine, we'll talk tomorrow.
All right. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody, and we'll see you Monday night at 6 o'clock. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. And if you didn't get a chance, make sure that you take a look at this screen and, you know, write down your favorite clinicianer, your favorite ref, and, you know, pick their brain. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night. Thank you, guys.
Carlos.